This is Rowena Dooley asking Seoul citizens to report for duty.
Hey, greetings. Welcome back to Soul Citizens. I'm GriffinGamingRPG, and we're back today with a full house of the Soul Citizens team to see you guys and talk to you guys about CitizenCon 2954, our review of last weekend's annual event. We are so happy to have you guys here. I'm echoing? Oh my goodness. Am I echoing for you guys?
Not for me.
Discord?
Not for me.
Yeah. But
Which
I hear you in Discord.
am I echoing for you guys in Twitch there? Somebody give me a shout out. Iobane says we're echoing.
As soon as it pops up.
No, Fastcard says no. Vavrick says no. Echo Bane, turn off your echo machine. Holy smoke, Iobane. That must be something that Iobane must be going on. Everybody says sounds good. Okay. All right. That's okay. Well, anyway, thanks for letting me know just in case. Always good to know if things going well technically. Hope you guys are doing well. Once again, and welcome back. Today is October the 27th, and I'm here with a great panel of our team members. It's been a while since we've had a full house, so let me start off at the very top up there, the one and the only Captain Jones. How are you, my friend?
Good, and good evening, soul friends. Hope everybody's well.
Good. Have you recuperated from your trip?
Yeah, it's, time zones and all of that, and quite long flight, but yeah, I'm back in action.
Otherwise, you're okay? Okay, all right. I got to turn the volume up just a little bit here. There we go. Next to him, we've got from down south of me, GomabATL. What's up, my brother? How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Got a lot on my mind.
Back in black? Hit the sack? Glad to be back?
Yeah. So rocking my...
Oh yeah. There you go.
Soul gear.
There you go.
Here it is.
Looking good. Good to have you on, brother. And then down far bottom left side, we've got the one and the only, even further down to the south with his background, Kelosal. What's going on, man?
It's going well. And Soul City, we've got another Soul Citizens and another CitizenCon behind us to talk about. So ready to get started. Good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And next to him, the one and the only Makoto co-producer, SeriousSFun. How are you, my friend?
Greetings and salutations. It's good to be back. I feel good. I got my, I don't know if you can see my.
Oh boy, yeah. Tell them what you got. What is it?
Bomber jacket on, letting people know, that Zeus continues to be my daily driver now that it's in the game and everybody's flying it. Y'all will fall off soon enough, but I'm gonna stay true.
I am jelly on that jacket.
All right. And last but not least, our very own yoyoMeg. Hi, Meg. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Have you recuperated from your travels?
I have, yes. It took a couple days, honestly. I was pretty surprised, but
Yeah.
jet lag killed me.
Well, glad you're doing good. I'm glad all you all are here today. Thank you that you guys are here with us as well today. Today is going to be, as you guys know, each year after we do CitizenCon, we do a quick review our first week back. And then after that, we go back and review each of the sessions that took place during CitizenCon. So this week, because we're going to give our initial reactions and talk a little bit about what happened that day on this particular show, but we are going to show our very first session that was done at CitizenCon, Brave New Worlds. We'll be doing that after that. And then the next 2 weeks after that, we'll be doing two shows per week leading up to IAE. So hopefully you guys will be around to join us for that. But today, initial reactions, the kickoff of CitizenCon, we're going to talk about that and give you guys some insight from both the Twitch side as well as those of us who attended the event in Manchester. So let me just jump right into it from there. Let me go to Gomab first. It's up at the top. Gomab, I know you tuned in. Did you get to watch through the whole weekend, or did you watch playbacks throughout the weekend?
It was a bit of a mix.
Okay.
You know, some of the stuff I was able to get up early and catch them live. Some of them I had to go back and watch because, you know, your boy likes sleep.
Yeah.
And, but I made sure I watched everything. I watched everything a couple times.
Okay.
It was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, now we have to know that, you know, nothing they said can be counted on as being something that we can rely on, because thanks, John Crew. But anyway, I digress.
Okay. Well, let me ask you something though. Is that you're saying now we have to do that? I mean, is that just now we're finding that out, or is that something that has been through the history of the development?
It's never, you know, everything that they've said before, we felt like at least it was, you know, it was either at least something they were trying to do, and if they couldn't do it, then they were like, hey, we're trying to do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Something else and instead, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now it's kind of like, what are you talking about? You guys were speculating. You know, we never said that. You know, we never said there was no plans for this. You know, away from, you know, get away from me, you stinky gamer.
Oh, I don't know if they said all that, but we'll get to that on episode 3, 2 episodes from now. Go ahead. What are you gonna say?
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But I caught him. My overall sentiment of the whole thing, it was the stuff was, it was cool to see.
Mm-hmm.
I you know, as you know, I was with you last year at LA.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this one to me missed the mark as it's, you know, because it got me excited about things that we're going to see in 2, 3, 4 years from now,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to what am I going to see between now and the next CitizenCon.
Okay. That's an interesting point. Kelosal, you were in the Discord, if I'm not mistaken, with Fast Cart. Is that right? During the show?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
It's like somebody's little bit grump over there about the show. But you know, my friend and I, my road dog Grumpy, we saw it. It was fantastic. I mean, I enjoyed it. I'm not saying it was a 10. We'll talk about it later about that piece. But yeah, I think they got what they wanted to talk about out. So I mean, we'll talk more about that as we get to the show. Let me ask you a point there, because you just said something and Gomab just said something that would be an interesting take on CitizenCon. It is historically, and I've been going to these since 2016. Historically, I think it's difficult to discern, to Gomab's point, what's in the now and the not yet, right? And last year was one of the first times that CIG in many years had decided to state a certain time frame as to what we were seeing being presented at CitizenCon. And they said it was their intention to get most of what we saw into our hands by the end of 2024. Do you think that it would be helpful if CIG distinguished this is what can happen in the next year, between now and the next time we see you next year, and then here are the things that we're working on for the future? Do you think that would help the community? Because it is difficult to, you know, So there is a sentiment that as soon as we see something, it's like, yeah, it looks great, but when will we get it? Right. And I know that CIG has to be careful about timelines, but do you think projecting to the community, or should I say communicating to the community that here's some things that we want to get you within the next year, and then the other stuff is, down the road. Do you think that would be something that they should consider?
Of course. I mean, this is a different game in terms of how they market, right? I think, most games, in terms of development, usually has an open and close cycle in terms of development, and they're not dictated by sales, right? And what I'm talking about, in this case, we got ship sales all the time, and it seems, there's really no big major publisher here, and it's fan generated. Yeah. So it seems like they've taken upon themselves, whether it be a good way or a bad way. Some people would say the bad way, to use this type of strategy to go ahead and accrue revenue. Okay. Well, that means different means of I would say publicizing things have to be done in order for them to exhibit some type of excitement, so they can accrue revenue. Yeah. This may not be the best model, but right now, it's a working model for them. They still continue to generate revenue. Yeah. On top of that piece. Yeah. On top of the promise, I won't say promises, but on top of the things that they probably shouldn't give dates, or shouldn't even give a timeline. They probably should say, we are looking to get this in your hands in the near future. So that way, and so that way when it comes out, is, a lot of people are not expecting a timeline of January or 2024. Okay. It just comes out. So so many things to talk about in terms of how they deliver things and stuff like that, but that's just the nature of the beast in terms of how their strategy is. I just think it's a new piece of strategy that a lot of people are not used to. I'm not saying it's a good one, but apparently if they're still making money, it's something to look at as well. Okay, let me go to Gomab real quick then, because of what he said is kind of what's sparking this in my head. Gomab, you were there last year, and they told us, they gave us the little silhouettes of the different ships. There were 10 ships up there. When it was all said and done, this year they came back, gave a report on those 10 ships and said, hey, they showed all the ones they delivered, and they said, here's one that we won't deliver. Do you see that as good communication? Because there are probably some people who still feel like, well, yeah, they didn't do what they said they were going to do. That was a report from CitizenCon to CitizenCon, right? Do you think that they should? And I get what Kelosal's saying about the sentiment aspect of it, but even though they may be generating money, they could also be creating a negative sentiment amongst those who've given money, right? So do you think that them finding some balance between the now and the yet and not yet would be a good thing communication-wise?
Dude, so to the point of, hey, we set a target and we came really close to hitting that target this year, but let me show you all the work that we've done this year. That to me was as perfect of a communication as possible. Like, the people that expect perfection, ignore them, right? I tell my son all the time, we don't expect perfection, we expect evidence of effort. Show me that you're trying, that you're working towards doing the things that are set out and expected of you. Fantastic. That's all we ask. And the same thing for us, most rational gamers, most rational backers. We want to see that, hey, you're setting a target and you're working towards it and you're putting efforts towards it. And if you're not hitting it, many of us understand there's going to be a lot of the noisy minority that's going to say, you promised, you said you were going to try, or you targeted Q3 for this thing, but you couldn't do it because of hybrid crashes and things like that it took longer to figure out. Ignore those people, because those are going to be the minority there. They're going to be noisy, and I feel like CIG's gotten a little bit jaded on that, and because they've been the noisy minority, they are starting to really kind of let that impact how they communicate stuff out to the rest of us that do understand what's really going on. So I don't know. I think that part was really good. I think the recent changes, I'm not going to call them what they are, changes to a lot of the ships and things in the game, followed up immediately by sales of ships that seem to fill that gap that they just created, kind of makes a lot of people feel like, hey, you know what I'm saying? I get it. Things are supposed to change, but this isn't organic. This seems really synthetic and leaning more towards we need to sell more ships.
Mm-hmm.
So let us create a void and fill it in order to drain more money out of your wallet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a shift. I know people have been saying it for a while, but it's been a real shift over the past 6 to 9 months
Mm-hmm.
that I'm seeing it's really disturbing for me,
Mm-hmm.
for their communications and their actions, that I think needs to be addressed by leadership at CIG.
Okay. Yeah, I'm. There's a part of me that agrees with that, and then there's another part of me that makes me feel that. There's a part that also makes me feel like, because time is somewhere in the subconscious of all of us, that we also become much more hypersensitive to maybe behaviors that have always been there. Not in every case. But I'm saying, it's kind of like, when is enough, for some people, right? Whether it's a feeling that, another 2 years, for example, that statement, another 2 years, another 2 years. And I'm not saying that that's not a legitimate statement. I'm just saying, I think that there's a certain feeling. And I think I said this earlier, that I felt that this year it was very important that CIG begin to deliver, because the sentiment and the feeling of the community is starting to feel a certain kind of way. Each year it's always rocky, right? We have our moments of celebration and we have our moments of feeling blah about this thing. But anyway, we can have another conversation about this. We keep going. I want to step in a little.
Remember, 2 more years. It's always 2 more years. That was the most tone deaf thing I've ever heard.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody, it's like, oh yeah, congratulations, in 2 more years. I'm like, guys, you can't say that.
Yeah.
You've been saying that for the past 10 years. Say something else.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. And again, hearing it over and over and over, each year it happens, it becomes even much more of a thorn. No, I mean a thorn. It was a joke. It was a joke 7 years ago. You know what I mean? And now it's dismissive, but it also can have certain sentiments behind it. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about what came up. As you guys know, Gomab went last year. Kelosal didn't go this year, but this year some of the team members went, and it was Captain Jones. It was his first time joining us. SeriousSFun, this was his second time. yoyoMeg, her second time, and Geo, like me, about his 4th time. He's not here today, but we're going to give some feedback from them about what they saw, and maybe some behind the scenes stuff that you guys don't get to see, when you're watching things on Twitch. There's a lot of stuff that you end up kind of missing out on. Let me go to let's see, Captain Jones. Your first time going, your initial reaction. I mean, you went to, not only was it your first time, this was also the biggest CitizenCon that CIG has done. I think this is over 4,400, 500 people plus staff and workers. It was about 5,000 people altogether. What was your initial reaction when you got to the con?
Yeah, the initial reaction was pretty exciting, as you mentioned. My first one, so you kind of have a mix of high expectations and also a mix of mystery. What's it going to be like? Because I always watched it virtually throughout the years. You're just watching the panels or the summaries of panels, but really seeing what's going on while it's in person, the chatter that's happening in person, and all the behind the scenes things that you miss while watching on YouTube or wherever you consume it.
Yeah.
So that's where I really went into the door with, while under the same lens of thinking about, really what the experience is going to be like. I wanted to get fully immersed in the experience. I jumped in, grabbed the premium ticket and everything. So I want to make sure I had every avenue of experiencing it in its totality. Bar citizens, premium tickets, and all of that. So my initial thoughts was, hey, it's pretty cool. It's here. I'm here. I'm in Manchester, another place I've never been before. I'm meeting people that I'm meeting for the first time. The experience is definitely enhanced by the people I'm with. I had work members there. We had Soul Team there. People other streamers, people you play with that you're seeing for the first time. So from an experience standpoint there, that was all amazing. No complaints there.
Yeah.
When it comes to that, oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, was there anybody there that you did know ahead of time, or was everybody you met the very first time?
In person, the very first time, yes.
Okay, very first time. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so meeting a lot of those people in person the very first time was amazing. You know, that really enhanced the experience. When it comes to specifically things like a premium experience, you know, that was another set of expectations. But what is say going to give me from an experience standpoint? I wouldn't say that the premium experience really verged from the non-premium experience.
Yeah, I got to finish my post on that. I've got a nice long post that I'm writing regarding that. I didn't get to finish yet, but
I'm sure you're not the only one. So you know, if it wasn't for the camaraderie, you know, the people who were there, I think I would have been a little disappointed, because as far as gathering information and, you know, all the juicy tidbits, you know, I could really consume that through watching the videos or watching playbacks. Other aspects of it, I could have really got just through the general mission. In fact, people there, I was in a mixed group of premium and non-premium, and honestly, their experience was in many cases better as far as things they received and when they received it. I mean, we're all jealous of SeriousFun's jacket there. I stood in line for hours of that as a premium ticket holder that wasn't able to stand in the premium line. They shuffle us all into the general line. So I think SIG does an amazing job when it comes to the technical aspects of the game. You know, like that Zeus is in SeriousFun backgrounds, amazing ship. But when it comes to experience beyond that, looking at the big picture, some of the things Gomab was talking about as far as managing expectations and understanding the perceptions that those might have based off the way you communicate or the way you don't communicate, I think that is a pretty big area opportunity as things start to scale out. You know, this was my first one, so I didn't go to 2016 or those out there. I imagined that those were obviously much smaller, and from an experience and event planning perspective, you know, a lot easier to handle. But as things have grown, as the project is scaling out, including the experience piece, I think it's a great time to add more focus to that.
Yeah. Okay, good stuff. Meg, let me jump to you. This was your second round to give us your feedback on this year's event. Give you your travel, whatever, you know, the whole 9 yards, whatever you want to share.
Yeah, my butt hurt. I didn't like that flight. I don't want to do that ever again. But I'm down if it's in Germany. I definitely don't want to miss a CitizenCon ever. The community is truly just freaking incredible. I definitely learned that I would rather not watch panels and get to meet more people and have conversations with people. There's just I mean, you said it was like around 5,000, right? People, maybe less, maybe more. There's just too many people for like 2 days. And I was there Tuesday to Tuesday. So I was there for like a whole week. Still was not enough time. The event itself, yeah, it was pretty good. I will say I got there at 7 a.m. on Saturday.
You beat us.
I was like 10th in line for some merch because I just knew it was going to be chaotic. And yeah, that was probably stupid, but it wasn't on Sunday when it sold out. Yeah, I would definitely recommend maybe just getting there earlier, trying to beat the sellouts online. I'm surprised that pre-orders sell out. It's really weird to me, but yeah, I definitely am with y'all that there are many things premium could have done better. I don't think the premium ticket was worth it. Especially when you are with people who don't have it. I think I stepped foot in the lounge once just to meet somebody and then immediately went back elsewhere. They killed the freaking booths. Oh my gosh, those were so freaking sick. Obviously the Hornet, amazing. Just the atmosphere in there was pretty cool. I mean, they did do better with the premium. The lounge area, that was laughable last year. Absolutely laughable. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, I mean, wow. The walking into where everybody was seated for the panels, so crazy, so big. I'm just trying to think what else. The bar citizens were great. Friday was, I don't know how they would have done better. Just because it's like normal people, not like people who are employed to get stuff done running Bar Citizens. That was freaking. There was like 2,000 people or something, right? Like they said that they had sold out the 2,000
on Friday.
They're trying to figure out how to get more people.
They did. They actually got permission to sell another 200 tickets for that night for Friday.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I went to Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday's Bar Citizens. They were all great. And I don't drink. I'm very socially anxious. But still, it was great. So definitely would say if anybody feels that way, try to push past your inner thought. But still try to find somebody, because when you get there, it'll still feel very overwhelming, and you'll just feel like you're standing there while everybody is talking to the people they already know. But try to find somebody else who's doing that and talk to somebody, or hit me up. But yeah, I think the event was pretty cool. I just don't. My biggest L was not getting to meet so many people on my bucket list to meet. I didn't get to meet freaking Benoit. Apparently, I was standing next to him for like an hour at Atmo. Also, Atmo Esports was cool as frick. That was awesome. But yeah, my biggest L was not getting to meet and hang out with so many people.
Now, mind you, guys, let me give you 2 points here. First of all, if you ever want to learn how to deal with, if you have any social anxieties and learn how to play it off, Meg is perfect. Because you would not know that she is stressing out at all. She'll say something to everyone else, Griff, it's getting kind of over. But you wouldn't know it. You honestly wouldn't. She's so personable, and people love being able to come up to her and see her. Secondly, if you look at these pictures that are up here, Meg has more pictures with people than any of us do. I want you guys to know that, okay? So don't let her fool you, okay? She made the rounds, and she is very much a people person. I mean, definitely people would come up to me and say, hey, have you seen, was yoyoMeg here? And I'm like, yeah, she's here. She's around here. Somebody's got her. But yeah, we had a real good time. And I'm glad you made it again this year. I know it was a big effort to cross the pond, but I'm really happy that you made it this year.
Yeah, I'm glad I did it too. Wish more people could have. I know that's a very far and expensive trek.
It is. But next year, maybe North America, so maybe it'll make it a little bit easier for folks next year. Sirius, back to you now. Your thoughts. This is your second time going.
Yeah, I mean, it was powerful to have that first time as context.
Pardon me for interrupting too. Hold off on CIG. We'll talk about that on our, at our thing coming up.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
For me, the thing that Yo-Yo said about connecting with people, what I discovered last year was that it would probably take 5 or 6 CitizenCons to make the rounds to meet everybody I wanted to meet anyway. Right? Because last year, the premium context gave us the VIP. We had a lot of real access, and I still didn't meet everybody I wanted to meet. Griff was sending me out last year to capture devs and bring them back to the table, and I still didn't meet everybody I wanted to meet. So I realized that it's probably going to take multiple CitizenCons to meet everybody I have in mind that I wanted to meet. But what was exciting to Yo-Yo's point was just being in line and ending up meeting people, right? Yeah. Just being open enough to be able to do that. The first day I met Sigelian's girlfriend, Bite Size Hobbit, and she's bite size and I'm 6'7", so that was funny, right? We were both standing next to a backer from Utah, who had been backing since 2013, and just got to meet people and talk about what people were there for, what their dreams were, to connect. And it reminded me of what makes the event special, right? Which is getting to know people, connecting with people. I picked up a VIP to Atmo, enter Atmo as well. Went there. There wasn't any food left, so I left kind of quick because I was hungry, and then came back. But there and in the venue itself, checked out Billionaire Ninjas, who looked like he was filming for CIG. He had his equipment that sophisticated. But just a lot of connection with folks, a lot of opportunity to engage members of the Soul team that I had not met in person, like Captain Jones, folks that are Soul team adjacent, like Falcon. It was just a good opportunity to do that. Tim Hortons with Griff, For those of you who don't know, Griff was also there with his wife. She was incredibly gracious and lovely. That was a lot of fun. So, the people were a lot of fun. I hate the flights back and forth. And so I'm excited for North America next year. Hopefully, those flights can be shorter because I'm not going to get any shorter. But the experience itself, and we have several shows where we'll be talking about the panels and everything else. I've got lots to say about that, but really the experience was about the people, and that was just as good, if not better, than the previous year.
Yeah, it was a good week. As you guys see on the screen, there's Meg. She's with Ulf. There's Geo coming up there also. He and I happened to be on the same flight heading over. We didn't even know we were on the same plane. I looked up and he was 2 rows in front of me, which was hilarious. There's Cap or SeriousFun and I. We were at Tim Hortons. We did a recording. You guys can find that on YouTube and Twitch. Our pre-CitCon that we did. The picture of us sitting outside there is after we did pre-registration on that Friday, which we still stood in line for, even on that day. There was just a lot to see and a lot to do. Some of you guys saw images. I think the video, they showed the models that were created of the Retribution, Port Olisar. The thing that we're trying to convey to you is that the Twitch experience is one experience, but going is another. And we always try to encourage people that if you can go to a CitizenCon, if you have the ability to attend, plan for it. It's no small task to do it, but it's October every year. We would really tell you that if you have an opportunity to go to connect with community, yes, the presentations are great. But being able to meet the devs, being able to meet other people, even if it's folks in your Discord, is just an amazing opportunity. And I think you guys saw that Disco talked about the F7 that was there. It was, I think they said the real dimensions on that ship are 75 by 75. That was a 50 by 50. It was an amazing model to see. And there was just a lot to see there this year. And again, each year it has grown. Like I said, almost 5,000 people there this year. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and wrap that up. What we are going to tell you is obviously that I know I plan on going again next year. More than likely it will be here in the States. Normally we were in LA last year. Normally would have went to Austin. But as you guys know, the Montreal studio is now part of the CIG family. I'm praying for Montreal personally. But if we go back to Austin, I'm cool with that. I'm sure Meg would like that too, because it's a shorter trip for her. Same thing for Gomab. But yeah, I would love for it to be in Montreal next year, just to be something different in a different studio to go see. Excuse me. Is there anything else you guys want to jump in before we start the video? Has anybody got anything? Initial reaction? No? Okay. All right. Well, we are now going to tune in.
Oh, the bags, those goodie bags were also way better this year.
Yeah. Tell them about the bag, Meg.
Yeah, it was a tote instead of like a backpack. I definitely plan on using that just like more often than the other thing. Came with like actually I have it right next to me, which is crazy. I'm like looking down at it.
Cool.
Came with a CitCon, like a rubber keychain.
I'm gonna put the big screen up so they can see what you're doing.
Came with this, like, I don't know what material this is, hard case with a really nice journal and the same pen from last year. Can't open it.
Yeah, it's kind of weird to pull it open.
I think Premium, they got this card, the F7 Mark II Hornet signed by Chris Roberts. Came with the same like type pen from last year, just as CitizenCon 2054. Really nice journal. A patch that I don't know where it is, and then this coin. It's almost the same thing as last year, but 2954.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was
the journal is really nice.
Do you guys know if there was anything to distinguish the premium versus the regular?
The premium got 10% off an item, and item. Then that card I just showed with Chris Roberts' signature on it.
Okay. I was wondering what the difference was. Okay, cool.
And then their bag handle was green instead of blue, I think.
Right. Okay. So now we know what that difference was. Thanks, Meg. Appreciate that. Yeah. Okay. Alrighty then, let's go ahead and watch the very first session that CIG did this year. Last year, they kicked off everything talking about the Star Engine. This year, they are talking about Genesis. And yeah, let's watch that. And when we come back, we're going to give some feedback. Stick around. Something special going on tonight, too, so you don't want to leave. So we're going to watch this, and then we'll give our comments afterward. Here we go.
CitizenCon! Guten Tag, CitizenCon! Hola, CitizenCon! Ni hao, CitizenCon! And hello, Manchester. I'm not going to need this anymore. Cool. I am Benoit Beauséjour, or as some of you know me, I am Balt on Spectrum. Today, we will talk about Brave New Worlds. This is Pyro 2, Monox. It's a barren planet, not really habitable. Now, since the advance of our planet tech, we've always allowed players to circumnavigate planets and move from orbit to ground seamlessly, explore complex areas in intricate detail. Now, with server meshing, we're going to need a lot more locations for missions and destinations for more life. But there's a major question that has always followed this project since the beginning of Alpha 3.0. How are we going to make a large number of planets and systems? How are we going to meet the fidelity benchmark we've established? In this technology update, we bring life to lifelessness, even to Monax. We take the physical representation of the terrain, the geology, the atmosphere, the climate, and the environment to create accurate biomes that spring naturally from the collision of all these environments. Coherent, denser biomes that follow the laws of nature that we encode into data. Data that we then leverage to place flora and fauna, yes, but also settlements, buildings, alien and human life in a planetary context. This creates worlds that are scientifically plausible, richer in gameplay opportunities. We want you to find adventure just by going around the planets without a quantum point. We want you to find actions along your path. For this, we are changing how we made the game. We are scaling how we made the game in all areas. This is not just a Planet Tech update. This is a collection of systems that we call Genesis. Now, to help me explain all this nice work and this nice technology, let us kick us off. And I welcome our very own Ali Brown and Will Hine for Phase 1 of Genesis.
Hello, Star Citizen.
Yes, hello, CitizenCon.
Yeah. So let's start with some introductions. This guy over here is Will Hine, aka Water Guy or River Guy.
And this lovely gentleman is Ali Brown, pusher of pixels extraordinaire.
And we're here to tell you about Phase 1 of Genesis, which we're entitling The Laws of Nature. And this revolves around the fundamental approach we use to build our planet and is the literal foundation for everything else we're going to talk about in this talk today. Now, it centers on data-driven, physically based rules that we aim to realistically emulate nature and its incredible diversity. Before we dive in a bit deeper, let's just recap on some of the things we already have on our planets. So here you can see our lovely atmosphere and our cloud rendering, which can provide some spectacular views. We have our on-the-fly terrain generation, which is no loading screens in our game, which we're very proud of. And then we have our scattering system that can populate these planets with many different diverse biomes. And we've been setting quality benchmarks for each of these biomes as we come across them one by one.
But what we have isn't perfect. This scene on Microtech, it looks great, but it's not getting the same density that you'd expect from a real pine forest. That's one of the things we want to solve. The other, if I take you to the other side of Microtech, you'd be excused if you thought we'd just turned around and looked at a different part of the forest. Why is that? Well, this is because currently our artists create slices of biomes in great number, and then they distribute them across the planet using humidity and temperature properties. Each slice looks great in isolation, as you've seen, as you've explored. But this is not the solution to give us varied and natural biomes across an entire planet. Additionally, just using humidity and temperature limits us to only 2 degrees of variation. And that's not enough for the sorts of planets and worlds that we want to create and for you to explore.
So how are we going to scale up our planet generation? Well, as I said before, we're going to start with physically based rules that drive everything. We want nothing to feel random on these planets. We want no limitations on the number of biomes. We want infinite biomes that are continuously changing across the planets. And we want extreme density, and we want to maintain or exceed all of the quality levels we've set with our existing biomes. And most importantly, we want it to be scalable so that we can really scale up to the level of content that the designers are expecting. And from your perspective, we want you to be able to truly explore and find unique playing opportunities everywhere on our planets. So to start this, we're going to need more data. So if we see here some of our existing data sets on our planets, we have temperature, which we define locally and globally, and humidity, and that's it for now. With Genesis, we add many other data sets, such as the geology type, the soil type, and then we also go for things like the soil depth and the quality and the nutrients and many other properties all drive this complex data set that we use to build rule sets on that each individual asset can describe how it should work with them.
We're going to put something together and show you some demos today using some of the assets that you've already know and love in the PU. Although you might see some new stuff later, we'll save that. What you're going to see is a vertical slice of development. It's very early stages, very work in progress. You might see some bugs, but that means it's only going to get better, so be excited. The number one challenge with planets in our game is scale. In no other context do you need a planet to look great from first-person perspective when you're stood among the trees. You need it to look great when you're in a spaceship at a quantum marker miles away, and everywhere in between. There are no loading screens, you see everything. We cannot afford for it to look bad in any of those scenarios. So, let's start from a ground perspective. Demo number 1, let's have a look. So, how do we make that? Thank you. So, let's talk about first what's underneath it all. The ground! So, in our previous terrain shader, we just switched between different ground textures depending on climate and didn't really consider the unique properties of each type. Now, the terrain shader is based around 4 layers. We always first consider bedrock at the bottom of it all. Then, where appropriate, we add layers of soil of different types. We then add debris where appropriate, whether it be pine needles, dead leaves, etc. And then when it gets cold, we add snow. Each of these layers has unique shading properties and unique transitions between them. Because we do this all in one shader, we're able to achieve that as well as being performant. We can also use things like water saturation to darken and tint the soil and other properties to make it look more realistic. But that's not what filled most of the screen in that demo. That's the vegetation. Like what Ali said, we want to emulate the laws of nature. So in Genesis, we have rule sets for every asset that tells it how to respond to our rich data, whether it be soil type, water availability, temperature, geology, or whatever. We assess the viability and the vitality of each asset and compare them to decide what is likely to spawn in a natural environment. This automatically creates the cohesive environments that you saw in that clip, not handcrafted anymore. No one has told those ferns and those pines to be like that. They each want to be like that. And that's what we're doing, multiple assets coming together to create a unique microbiome. What about trees then? Same thing. They have a larger requirement for space, they have a larger requirement for nutrients. That's how you see the distribution, and it's how it all works. Let's meet the flora that came together to beat that forest, to make that forest, and have a look at some of their properties. Now, just to note, they are all going to look quite similar because we've already seen them in the same place, so they must be similar. So, building blocks, like grass and common grass, medium amounts of sunlight. We had ferns, see, it's a much lower requirement for sunlight. We had salix bushes forming our undergrowth, and we had pines, of course, and multiple variations of pines. Diversity is driven by competition. Everything has ideal conditions, which affects its competitiveness. We also have additional control over this in the form of dominance, which allows us to make one asset more competitive and more dominant than another, which is just what we see in nature. Everything is constantly fighting for resources and, of course, light. Because we spawn these assets in a hierarchy, it's easy to propagate shade data down over the distribution of the assets so that we can control ones that prefer or reject shade. Often, like these ferns, they can spawn in light, but they are outcompeted in those scenarios most of the time. So you will see a rogue fern, or a place where there's no seeds for a specific asset, you might start to get this coming in. Let's take a look from a larger perspective again.
So to take you through some of the things we saw in that clip, let's talk about rocks first. So anyone that's done a lot of ground driving and ground vehicles might have seen that our rocks sometimes feel a little bit randomly scattered and can be quite an obstacle sometimes. So in this clip, you saw that the rocks are no longer randomly scattered, and they're now placed based on physically based rule sets. And this logical grouping is achieved via erosion simulations, which we run offline to build localized data maps. And they describe the size of the aggregate and rocks and the density and where they should naturally form. And that means we get things like these natural clusters of boulders at the forest edge underneath the cliffside. And on that note, you might have noticed that the cliffs have been dramatically improved in how they shade. We also see things like the natural clumping of vegetation caused by seed dispersal. This is controlled per species, so we can get better emulation of their unique growth patterns and create a much more realistic environment. And we also calculate the slope aspect, which is the exposure to vegetation to solar radiation and other environmental factors. And this allows us different species to flourish in different conditions, as we can see on different sides of this valley. Then over larger scale, we calculate the age and vitality of each tree individually to drive exactly how high they should be, but also the color of their leaves. Now, this isn't the only thing that will drive the color of the leaves. We're going to introduce the concept of seasons to the game. And this will mean our planets will evolve through the year, and we'll be able to shed leaves from trees and have the grass wither in winter.
So as you're starting to see, all these rules, all this data, it's all coming together to create what we call truly emergent biomes. Let's have one more look at how this varies over a much larger scale. Just like in real life, thank you. Just like in real life, our areas should vary, even by traveling a few kilometers. If you get in a helicopter and fly over the Alps, it all looks a bit snowy, but when you look closer, it's constantly changing. And we're now able to accurately represent that with our changing data. Another very important factor to mention is the distant look. In this screenshot, you don't see a single tree, and yet the terrain is still green. We previously did that with artist-made lookup tables that told the planet what color to be at what position. But that wasn't going to work with all our new data and our far more complex spawning. Now we have a systemic solution. The planet shader is able to intelligently evaluate what's going to spawn there using the same rule sets that cause the assets to spawn there when you get there. That means we can sample the sort of color that is going to project onto the orbital view and use it. We get a far better accuracy from the result. Together, by creating rules and authoring data that works, we create a continuously varying planet that sets the scene for the incredible exploration gameplay I know you guys are going to have. But how have we done this without compromising on performance?
So yeah, with all this new data sets and these physically based spawning rules, you're probably wondering, how is this going to handle in your CPU? We don't want to melt anyone's CPU, so we've redesigned all of this tech to work much more efficiently than before, and now it can run on many cores. This allows it to be run perfectly well on both the CPU and the GPU. So we've redesigned our framework so that we can run it at both and swap between them freely. Now, the benefit of this is we can do things like, first off, move the terrain system to the GPU, and we've now done that to get some incredible performance improvements, but we then also cache the results in what we call a virtual terrain texture. I'll give you a quick demo of this now. This is now vastly faster than the previous system, but it also allows us to generate the terrain in much higher resolution, which means all the popping you can see on the mountains as we're approaching, all of that should be completely eliminated on the right-hand side of the screen.
With the extra headroom we've gained by making our terrain system more efficient, we've been able to introduce some improvements, including high-resolution ground textures, proper blending between surface types, and of course, better tiling. If you're familiar with any of our planets, we've taken off all the assets so you can see the issue, and now how it looks, you don't see those lines going at all. And one more. With the terrain data cached on the GPU, like Ali said, we can perform the scattering there too, which is significantly faster. All those algorithms that we've used to generate those first bits can run there without being more expensive on your CPU. And it also means the results are directly there on the GPU. We can render straight from them. That allows us to have dramatically more density in our new system. We can render objects directly without having to go via the CPU every frame. We also cull at different levels of granularity, with bigger groups in the distance and individual assets up close. Just as a demonstration, this is the sort of density you can expect on Microtech today. And in a second, we'll flip over to what you can expect from the new upcoming tech. In a second, we're going to turn on the culling groups debug so you can see. These are the groups that will create of those trees and of the terrain. And as we get closer, we shrink them so we're more intelligently rendering what we need without having to assess each tree individually, all the way down to the ground.
So to recap some of the things you've seen here in phase one, we had data-driven rules based on physically based data, generating emergent biomes that continuously vary across our planets to get infinite possibilities. And we've achieved this with much greater density than before and much faster rendering. And we also achieved seamless transitions from ground to space with zero popping. So now that we've got all this tech, it's time to talk about how art might make use of this. So for that, I'll hand you to the next phase towards Sebastian Schroeder.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. No physical.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank God there's only 20 of you, otherwise I'd be nervous. Right, thanks for having me. I'm here on behalf of the Planet Content team, and we're very excited to finally show you some of the things we've been working on. As you've just seen from Will and Ali, the system keeps growing in both complexity and capability, so our libraries have to grow alongside it. Wait, should I click? No. No, I should click. Yeah, click. Oh, there we go. So, our goal with the content is to provide the content that the system needs to populate every corner of every planet with realistic environments. And this content is what this phase of Genesis is all about, emergent biomes. For our first example of today, it's almost a shame Will left, because it's about moisture, but let's look at very high moisture and medium to high temperature. Thanks, that did look really good. So, for swamps, we obviously made vegetation that feels at home in or near water. But before we dive in, allow me to give you a quick primer on our approach to authoring plants. Most species can survive in a fairly wide range of climate conditions, but will only thrive if the conditions are ideal. To support this concept, we author our vegetation assets to describe the full growth cycle of a species. If the conditions aren't ideal, they may not grow to full maturity or look their best, but the species can still exist. So let's have a closer look. For the water's edge, we made plants like this Alternatera and the iris. We also need the aquatic ones to float on the water surface, like the water lily or the pickerel-weed. This willow and the one after, a Chinese tallow tree, while comfortable near water, we can also use to replace some of the more aged assets used to seeing elsewhere in the game. The last one, it's taking a bit longer now, but the last one, I'm gonna wait. The last one, you may not see used much in other biomes, but it's a very iconic one for the swamp, the bald cypress. So another feature we need to make a swamp experience a proper one is water interaction. Over the last year or two, a lot of work has gone into improving the way our water reacts and renders. So naturally, we wanted to make a biome that highlights those advances. Let's have a brief look at what it's like being inside the swamp. As you walk or swim through the water, you may come across obstacles like logs or debris floating on the surface. They will react to the player character and can be pushed out of the way. We were also pleasantly surprised when we first saw how the water simulation systemically affects assets floating on the water surface, making for some really immersive moments. Now, before I get to our second use case of the day, a quick disclaimer. Obviously, all the things you're seeing here today we're still actively working on, but this one in particular, it's a bit early in the process. So let's have a look at extreme object density next. With the data saying we should have high rainfall and sunlight year-round, it's the perfect condition for our next biome to appear. considering everything you've just seen is still very much work in progress, the gameplay capture team really did a great job showing our work in the best possible light. With jungles, we wanted to explore the concept of vertical stratification, as they are the prime example for that. What it means is that you have horizontal layers of microbiomes defined by the species that thrives with the amount of sunlight and rain that still reaches there. The floor, herb and brush layer we could almost do before, obviously missing the density. But now we also have the option to add variation to the tree layer by dynamically spawning epiphytes like lianas, orchids, or bromeliads, attached to trunks and canopies of other assets. With this and improved density is what will finally allow us to make convincing jungles. And the best part is, we don't even need a lot of different species to create what we refer to as a canvas of a biome. The idea being that we can vary what kind of forest you're in by adding or replacing the plants that visually stand out the most. Now, to get us started on our certification, we made epiphytes like the Epiprenum and the bromeliad, including a potted version for your hab. Then obviously you need jungles for lianas for a jungle. And we also made agrias, which add character to the herb and tree layer. For tall trees, we decided on the fairly generic rubber tree, as its different growth stages serve as a nice foundation for all height levels. And that's pretty much it, what we need to make a pretty good base for jungle. Now, for our third and last use case, let's pretend the data indicates regular rainfall and moderate temperatures. This climate would support a lot of different forests, but we also wanted to use this opportunity to explore extreme scale. And they're just really cool. Now, for this one, we first looked at the different redwood biomes on Earth and tried to analyze what the most defining species of them are. With this understanding, we then decided on the following plants to allow for a fairly universal redwood forest that will easily support variation across continents and planets. A fairly common family of species for the ground levels of all redwoods are ferns, in our case a sword fern. We also made a huckleberry variant to provide some visual density for the shrub layer. To add some Jurassic vibes, we made tree ferns, as they can be found in New Zealand's redwood forests. The most important one, though, are obviously sequoias, and they ended up being one of our most complex sets yet. As it turns out, they can grow to be fairly ridiculous in size. It keeps going. Now, one thing our game's foliage is sorely missing is the ability to properly react to what's happening around it. The goal here is to unify all forces from all sorry for the horrible rhyme, all forces from all sources, wind, characters and creatures, ships, explosions, and whatever else, and have the vegetation behave accordingly. Now, as part of our tech improvements, we will be implementing a GPU-based simulation that's fit for our game scale. For now, we've set up the ferns with our existing CPU-based one to better visualize what it will feel like to walk amongst those giants. Also, with the biomes on our planets now being defined by where an individual object wants to appear, you can expect a lot more happy accidents by having species invade different biomes, making for some unique locations, hopefully. Surely. Now, before I get to disappear off stage, I just want to say a big thank you to everybody involved, especially my team in Frankfurt for doing such amazing work and being all around great people. And also to all of you guys. I really hope you have a fantastic CitizenCon. This concludes this phase of Genesis, so please welcome Ian to the stage so I can tell you all about the next one.
Thank you. Hello, CitizenCon. All right. Those new planets and biomes were pretty, right? But it's time for phase-free civilization to give you some stuff to do. So, let's talk about location density. We've emulated nature as well as we can to make sure our planets are physically based and realistic, and our biomes are emergent. But it's time to start populating the verse, because where there's people, there are their lives and the structures they build. So it makes sense that whenever you go and explore these planets, that you find their lives. And what's even more important is that when we make these structures, that they use and they follow the same rules as our biomes, such as the jungles and the swamps. But before we continue, let's first take stock as to where we are now. At the moment in the verse, we have these custom, beautifully made locations, such as Ghost Hollow, we've got our distribution centers, or even just some outposts. And these have all been handcrafted by our designers and artists to hit that benchmark. And they've been working directly on the planet. However, going forward, this doesn't really scale with how we want to go forward with the game. Server meshing is about to arrive, and we're going to have a way higher player count. So those 73 bunkers across Stanton just won't cut it. But in general, it's also pretty barren. There's not much for you to explore and find stuff out there. So there's no exploration gameplay. You haven't really put your character to use for the way that you should. So this means we need to go bigger, which means we need to change our workflow. And with any workflow means we need to first establish a new benchmark. So, with our new benchmark, we are ensuring quality and improve on our previous work and make it even better. And any location that you'll find needs to have its own unique personality and no repetition. We don't want you to find the same location twice. This also means that this is your exploration and your findings. So when you go out there and explore with your Carrack or with your Corsair, is that whatever you find, you can share with your orgs or with your friends. As for that density, if you fly down to the planet, we want you to find something, let's say, every 100 clicks. But also improve the mission experience. So when you stay more on the planet, you're more immersed and you go from location to location. Just keep going. So going forward, we are modularizing all our existing locations and assets. And we're basically making a library of buildings and layouts that we'll be using to no longer work directly on the planet. The neat thing, all these modules and assets can be iterated upon and tested right in the editor for all the designers and artists to ensure fun gameplay and interactive sandbox activity, and also make sure all the mission stuff is there. Basically, we're building a toolkit. So let's look at some of the things that we need to keep in mind as we are making that toolkit. First and foremost, we've got our art style and branding. We've got things like Frontier for our settlements. We've got high-tech for the emergency shelters, but also utilitarian, like our bunkers and distribution centers. The richer the data, the richer these locations will be. Secondly, they all have a function. We've got mining for our mining outposts, farming for the farmsteads, or just places where people live. The function of the place will define the way the place looks as well, and its form. And last but not least, the people as well, the faction and their loadouts. We've got lawful people, like the new Citizens for Prosperity in Pyro, unlawful, such as Xenofred, and sometimes not even no one. And the place needs to look a bit, derelict. In different places, you'll find different people. So, now that we've made our toolkit and we've defined all this new stuff, let's start building thousands of locations. Yes, I said thousands. So, to avoid the same issue of working on directly in the planet, I'd like to introduce to you Starchitect. What Starchitect allows us to do is directly on a planetary scale scatter all these new libraries and modules and assets and no longer work directly on the planet. And it uses the same logical rule set as our emergent biomes. And it also gives us full control over the data that we set on these locations. So expect locations in places where they make sense. Let's kind of look at all this new Genesis data and all these new libraries and chuck it into Starchitect and see what it gives us. As you can see, we're now able to make full-size locations, and they will look completely different based on where you'd find them. The layouts are controlled by the rules, and it will reflect its place in the verse. We've got farms, mining outposts, but even our older locations, such as the bunkers that you find on Stanton. So, let's look at an example and kind of use the tool to really, make a location. We can define the rules, as I've mentioned a couple times by now. So for our mining outpost, it wants to be near a resource. We can specify what this resource needs to be. But we can also give it suggestions where sometimes you'd find it here and sometimes you wouldn't. If the location has refineries, it might want to be near water to refine the resources. Then secondly, we can define what buildings should be there. So obviously we need mining buildings, houses for people to live as well, and even power buildings that we can leverage with the resource network. Starchitect will intelligently figure out where to place these and what needs to be at the location. Next up, farms. Its rules, well, temperature. Not every plant can live in every temperature, but the same with soil type. Only certain plants can be in certain grounds. And then we can query the seed map to determine what plants you would find there. What are the harvestables? As for the targets, again, farm buildings, obviously, power buildings, houses, but even animals, such as our beloved quasi-grazers. And last but not least, derelict ships. We've got these all over the place currently. Rules, well, they'd be close to anti-air because I would be shot down, but even in harsh flight conditions, such as mountains or low visibility, you probably most commonly find them. Targets, well, crash ship parts, of course. Sometimes you'd find the full remains of a javelin, and the other time you might just find the nose of a starfarer laying around. So, let's talk about coherency. Sure, we can scatter all these locations everywhere on the planet, and you'll find them in places they make sense, but we can do better. You don't just want to find an outpost completely on its own, right? We want to make sure it really feels like people have built their lives here. So, let's talk about some missing bits. We want to tell tighter stories, such as the people's lives, but also logical exploration. If I find one thing, I expect to find something similar or something else nearby. We also need more data control. What defines one mining outpost being different from the other ones, aside from the harvestables? And also give the narrative developments. Make sure, people build near rivers, on mountains, they build near town halls, they build near distribution centers. So to hit that bit of our benchmark, we make sure that locations are near each other and group them together. The effect it gives is a fully developed landscape with vistas and points of interest all over. And we group them together in what we like to call a cluster, like this one, that has 13 locations. Let's talk about clusters. Clustering means generating locations near other locations. So, for example, if you find a distribution center, just like in the verse currently, I would find forward operating bases next to them. But if you go even further out, you'd find mining outposts to funnel those resources to the FOBs. Go out even further, you'd find caves around them, because that's where they might find some of the gems. And then we can even specify the data on a cluster level. All of the factions that live at this whole cluster, any mining outpost, that would be the same people, but also what commodities they sell, to find on what resource you'd find. So let's look at an example of the clusters. We have our mining cluster. Again, we can define what rules we should have. Rules, well, near a resource, just like our mining outpost, but also it needs to be on a lawful planet. We can target on a planetary scale where they would need to be. They need protection. As for the targets, well, caves, mining outposts, but even trade posts. Let's go to the other side of the spectrum. Before I do so, I forgot data. We can, on a cluster level, specify, again, what mineral commodities, but also what harvestable types you'd find are in that region. Now let's look at the other side of the spectrum, an unlawful cluster. What rules? Well, they need to be far away from any other cluster, because they want to be isolated and do their evil deeds on their own. And also on an unlawful planet, such as somewhere in the Pyros system. For the targets, outlaw outposts, crash ships, because they would shoot them down, and also ruins from just places they just completely overrun. The data on this one, you'd find specific loadouts, and they'll be using weapons that you wouldn't find in any other legal system. And these weapons will be sold at the shops in these regions. So, now that we have a cluster, let's go even bigger. Just like our locations, we can put clusters near other clusters, and we group them together, ranging between 10 to 15 locations each. And we group this into what we call a sector. Like this one, that has about 120 locations. However, on a planetary scale, we can define how many sectors we should have, with each their own data and persona. And every single one of these locations is now ready for the mission system to hook up and give you gameplay, and for you to find a bunch of places on your own. And just on this side of the planet, can you guess the number? We've got about 3,042 locations. And again, this means that as architects, we're just able to, on a planetary scale, just define how many locations we need, what you'd find there, and to just give that full identity. Thank you for listening. And I won't just see you in the verse, but I'll see you in a denser verse. However, this was only the first phase of civilization. Let me introduce you to the stage, the person who will introduce life at these locations, Francesco Roccucci.
So, hi everybody. Benvenuti a CitizenCon. So, where are we today? So, my name is Francesco Roccucci, and I'm the director in CIG. Welcome to the next step of phase 3. We will look into how life adapts to the laws of nature and how all the NPCs can interact pretty much with these incredibly vast and dense worlds that we just saw. So up to this point, we have seen how we are building the worlds. We start from the physical data set, and this is to make sure that what you see is not just beautiful and realistic, but also physically accurate. So the distribution of the elements that we have seen and the location and the POIs are influenced by geology, mission, narrative, and the lore. Those locations cannot be lifeless. We want the planets to basically leverage the space that emerge with life. So from an AI perspective, I will categorize the elements of those worlds into 4 macro groups. Emergent environment, that is everything we have just seen being built out of the physical data set. Users-made locations. So this includes everything that our designers or you players will create in the world. So something that is mankind-made and not predefined in the environment. interior of those locations. Now, this is very connected to the previous point. The difference is that they represent usually a confined space where there is much more tight interaction. And for NPCs, is a lot about interaction with objects that we are usually used to in our everyday lives. And then the day and night cycle. So in essence, the passage of time. That so far didn't have really a lot of impact on the gameplay. So to allow life to respect this world and conform to the rules that this environment defines, well, we want to improve our tools and workflow, and we want to distance ourselves as much as possible from a designer-driven approach. This is because, first, it's labor-intensive, it can be prone to bugs, but also because the scale of the worlds that we've just seen are very hard to be, designer-driven in the markup. So we want to improve this workflow, and we will see how manual markup is also not usually the best option, because with these worlds that are heavily impacted by users and changes and customization, it's very hard to know in advance where interesting things are. So today I want to show you a couple of examples of what the IT team has been focusing on to make these systems supported and scale correctly to support these vastly dense dynamic worlds. So we'll look at perception in light and dark environments and dynamic cover generation. So attacking an outpost now must have a level of depth that goes beyond what we had. So layouts of the environment can change, vehicles may or may not be present, and PC can be anywhere. And if it's a bright day, well, we will be more visible, but our enemies will also be more visible. And if you choose to attack at nighttime, well, we'll attack in shadows. During darkness, it's going to be a bit harder to see our enemies, but we will also be harder to be spotted. And it will give us more opportunities to be stealthy and sneaky. How do we do that? So as you see, there is also a lot of different light conditions in this outpost. So in this scenario, we will start look at how perception is impacted by the day and night cycle. On the planetary surface, as we've seen in the outpost, natural and artificial lights are the two elements that will impact vision. And knowing that, you can use this to leverage your gameplay style to exploit basically all the environment. So what is perception? On the NPC level is the combination of data that we collect out of the senses. And vision is one of the senses and just tries to, in a way, simulates the human side ability. So designers can already tweak the perception in different ways. And one way is defining how quickly NPCs can understand what they're seeing. And the light condition have a direct impact, how quickly an NPC will fully understand, for example, if there is an hostile in front of them. And obviously, there is condition of light that designers can control, and some others, like the day-night cycle, that they can't. So in this video, we'll see two main elements. The graph on the top left and the two colorful cones. The graph on the left basically represents the current light level the NPC is in, and the current multiplier this light level generates to speed up or slow down the NPC perception and understanding. The two cones instead represents the primary and secondary FOV. The red color means that if you stand in that location, it will result in NPC reacting the slowest to you, and the green color instead represents the quickest response. So during the night, NPC will have a hard time to understand and foresee and see things, but if they have flashlights on their helmets, they can turn it on, and this will impact their primary FOV, making still the peripheral vision a bit more uncertain. And as you see here, first of all, the NPC is patrolling with his domesticated friendly copion. This is because he wants to exploit the night vision capabilities of the animal, and it's kind of our tier 0 pets. So we will now look at the cover system. That is the next dynamic things that I want to show you. So when we introduced planetary navigation mesh the first time, our goal was really to create a systems that would support and process the environment in a very dynamic way. Our planets are just way too big to statically export them and process them, first of all, and then their regions only exist when somebody's there and the NPCs are there. So essentially, environment has its purpose only when life exists. Also, let's keep in mind that even if we could export dynamically and statically those planets, so processing dynamically all a static version of the planet, This would be, first of all, wasteful and on the memory side and time-consuming. And also because we have a lot of runtime modification of the terrain, this would require us to still reparse it at runtime, and pretty much that will be almost all the time. So to generate the cover data, we want to leverage the navigation mesh system. And what we do is, as you see here, the blue polygons are basically where NPCs can walk, and the green ones are what we call cover surfaces, that are our simple representation of the environment, what NPC uses to understand if they can hide behind something and if they can shoot from some positions. So up to now, we have an approach where designer would be a designer-driven approach. Designer can define in the locations where cover was interesting. They could mark it up, either the location itself or prefabs. And then with a special entity that would just sample dynamically the environment, but would still be designer-driven. This is obviously a good approach it's also a standard approach in gaming industry. But what about all those organic and inorganic elements that get scattered with the new system? Like if designers want to iterate on these ones, for example, and they want to change the physical data sets, those scattering tools will just change completely the layout. And what we want is that designers can do this change without being afraid of doing it because the gameplay was, predefined and controlled. And now they can just make something beautiful, but also fun. Besides that, yes, we did have a prefab approach where you can build stuff out of small building blocks. This is obviously a good approach because it's, in a way, you can build stuff out of smaller version, but this creates a lot of unnecessary data. Imagine a crate, and we can say that the crate can generate cover. Now we stack 100 crates, and what happens? That we have a lot of data to generate cover that we have to process, throw away. This would just waste CPU cycles for nothing. This is why, until now, you also couldn't find an NPC in a forest like this one and see them hiding behind a tree or a rock. So enabling the dynamic generation of covers on the planet allows us to exploit all the elements of the environment. Whenever navigation mesh generates, NPC can now have a chance to fight with you hiding behind available elements. Boulders, rock, walls, and are all useful elements right now. However, we don't have to limit ourselves to static geometries, but also vehicles can be used for cover. And as you can see, this is dynamically generating while the vehicle moves. So be careful where you park your Ursa, because now it can become a source of danger for you as well. Last but not least, these systems can be just used on all the different type of navigation mesh we have, so not on the planet, but also, for example, the interiors and everything you guys construct. Because obviously, you guys will build your own locations, but you don't really mark up stuff, or you don't want to decide that, because that's going to come automatically out of the system. So I want to show you So what I want to show you now is just like a little bit of insight of what goes behind the scene when we generate cover and navigation mesh. These are some of the steps that our system does. So we always start from the environment voxelization. What that means is we process the geometry, the physical representation of the geometries, that is a little bit simpler than usually the render mesh, and we construct it in a voxelized approach. This is also using different types of agent definition. Why so? Because obviously where a human can move is not the same as where a vehicle can move. So we can define different type of precisions and then speeding up the process where we have to, or be more precise where we cannot be to. And we can also create overrides based on different things. For example, if you crouch, you can enter into smaller locations than where you stand. This process is basically common between navigation mesh and cover. After that is generated, then we can evaluate the voxel in different ways. For example, defining where we can walk. So can we make the step with our foot over a specific voxel? Or is there something in front of that hole in the nav mesh so that we can actually cover behind? And then we can basically decide where to generate cover surfaces. And after the cover surfaces are generated, we can process where the cover locations are. Cover locations are a good spot for NPC to be behind the cover. So what we see here is that with the introduction of Maelstrom last year, obviously we knew this would revolutionize how you guys are playing. And we did have to find a solution to handle all the destruction you get to. So you would destroy so much stuff in this world that we had to find a solution, right? So this is why we approach the cover generation navigation mesh as it is, because there is just no way for us to predict anything that you're doing, and we want just Maelstrom to be another trigger for word evaluation. So as you see, this is all dynamically generating. And destroying anything just makes the world be reevaluated. So, as you see here, we can have also lots of rules. So you can see that in this here. But when things break, first they invalidate, and then when they rest, for example, we can decide when is a good moment to regenerate, so that we also don't waste too much CPU cycles. The color that you see is mostly cover quality. So you see the light green is high cover, the dark green is low cover, and then we have the red that we introduced some time ago that is basically not really good cover, but if there is nothing better, well, it's better to be behind something than being, in open space. So let's just recap. What we want to do is finding a plan and having a good plan to approach life in this vast universe. What we want is the life to be able to systemically evaluate all the dynamic environments that is generated. We want to improve our workflow, not only to support designers and being faster, but also support all your guys' creations. So we want the life to adapt, and this is all for making the game fun for you, so that everything comes together. So thank you all. This was phase 3. And now, let's welcome Ben Parry, that will introduce you guys to phase 4 of Genesis.
Thank you. Hello, CitizenCon. What's going on? Sorry, someone's changed my lines. Welcome to phase 4, light and sound. Now, we've seen already automated systems for automatically placing different biomes, different vegetation, settlements, and people. So now we're going to take the same approach to automatically handling light itself. First of all, why is this important? Well, it's not always obvious, especially when they do their jobs as well as they do. But there's an incredible amount of attention from the lighting artist that goes into all of the locations that we have in the game. Besides just marking up the reflection probe areas, they also manage the visuals really carefully, adding fill lights, approximating bounce lights off ground and up into ceilings and dark corners where there aren't any direct lights pointing, really. And the problem is, not only does this take a lot of time and really constrain the style that they're using, it's simply not possible. If you've got a planet full of forests and, 3,000 and something placed locations, you're going to be exploring places that no artist has ever visited. No, they've not looked at, and they're certainly not going to be able to have tweaked it for you. So we need something that works completely hands-off. And natural outdoor scenes are especially problematic for us. Indoors, you can put a lot of little lights around pointing from different directions, and you can probably justify it. Outdoors, you've got the sun, and you've got the sky. And if you're behind a tree, you've got the sky. And so you need that skylight to vary. Now, so this is the forest as you'd see it without the GI system. As you can see, all the shadows are receiving lighting from the same environment probe, so it's basically just a flat color across. We replace that with around 40,000 mini ray trace probes. Each of them has their own view of the sky, and so that gives you way more contrast and variation as you move in and out of the canopy. Now, there are a couple of other pieces of the puzzle that we've been working on over the last year. Now, the first is, well, all the stuff that you can't stick 40,000 mini probes onto. Anything that doesn't have an opaque surface, we can't really know where it is on the screen and track it from frame to frame. But if we don't do anything, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb. We've got fog, we've got particles, we've got other little things, I don't know what they are. And so we need something to do with those. So to address this, we've added a kind of stable grid of medium-y kind of probes that are generated around the player as you move around. So that gives us approximately matching lighting that we can apply to all of those things. Now, this is a little bit difficult to illustrate in normal scenes, so for once I've been making my own levels. As you can see, Pico's in trouble again, but because the lighting team hasn't helped, you can't see anything in most of the scene. If you add the transparency GI system, suddenly the whole scene comes alive. And this is something that we could never have done until we added this tech. Now, the other piece of the puzzle is glossy reflections. Now, we've got a fair few shiny objects in the game, you may have noticed. And we've got the same problem that if we fix the lighting on one thing and then the reflections don't match, it's going to look terrible. Also, ray tracing reflections is really cool, and we wanted to do it. And the challenge here, though, is that the ray traced reflections you're going to do, they're not just mirrors. Like, we've got a whole range of objects in the game, from like a scuffed hull panel all the way up to chrome polished pipes. And we want the same system to apply globally across that. So I'm going to do an uncomfortably short breakdown on what this tech looks like and how that comes together. So here's what we need to beat. Now, obviously it reads as shiny, but there's this kind of fakeness to it. It kind of looks a bit like it's flying. So let's see what the ray tracing looks like. Yeah, it's really noisy and horrible. We need to clean it up. So what we do is we let pixels share their data in space, and then also in time to clear up the final image. And then we let the game's normal anti-aliasing just kind of clean up the last stuff and carry us over the finish line. And that's how you make a chrome penguin. Now, I'm going to derail for a moment away from the topic of Genesis, because this isn't actually just about automating the lighting for new environments. This is also about pushing quality in areas that have already had all of that work done by the lighting team. We're freeing the artists up to light more naturally, allowing the time of day shifts to be embraced rather than fighting against them. And as I'm about to show, players and NPCs are going to reap the same benefits as well. So here we start adding natural areas of light and shade and warm and cool colors. These open areas benefit in the same way as the forest scene did, adding areas of shade and areas of open lighting. Like I mentioned, the time of day shifting leads to different ambience as the sun moves. And this is the shot that I just liked. Finally, let's see how the new GI system can brighten up your character's day. And also their day as well, whoever they are. Well, I promised you light and sound, but I don't actually know anything about sound. So here's the man who does, Graham Phillipson. Yeah.
Good afternoon, CitizenCon. I've been at CIG nearly 10 years, and this is the first time I've done this. Very exciting for me. So, do you want to make some noise? So, sound isn't as fast as light, so it takes me a bit to catch up. Jared wrote that joke for me, so you can blame him. It says it right here, blame him. So now we have a huge amount of visual and interactable content. Locations, biomes, populations, planets, and systems. And now they're all beautifully lit too, thanks Ben. But how do we paint this world with sounds? It's a challenge. It's a challenge of scale. We need to support multiple star systems, and it's a challenge of quality. We want the highest quality possible. We also don't want implementation to hinder creativity, and we want a seamless experience. So we're asking a lot. But with Star Audio, we can rapidly implement audio for entity classes, brushes, or audio sweeteners, all of which can be reused and reflected immediately across the game, including all of those emergent locations we talked about earlier. So again, this is Genesis data driving what happens in-game. And we can do all this without breaking flow. So here's a fairly dry video. It gets more exciting later, I promise, showing you our rapid workflow. So over on the left, had to think about that, we have the Wise editor. That's where all our sounds live. In the middle, we have Star Audio editor. And on your right, we have an entity that needs some insect sounds on it. So we can very quickly drag from Wise to Star Audio. We can mark up very quickly a bit of logic, and we can re-trigger this entity's spawn sound so that it immediately makes a sound. I assure you there is a group of insects. Thank you, you're too kind. If you like that one, you'll like the ones that come later. But there's a little something missing. So to add some realism, sounds respond to how they move, how you move in the world and how they move relative to you. So we need to change the frequency as their velocity relative to the listener changes. This is known as the Doppler effect. In simple terms, the pitch dropping as something whizzes by. Or, in even simpler terms, now, sound designers traditionally needed to implement their own Doppler sounds. But given how fast we can travel through these rich, dense locations and the sheer number of them, we can't afford to be doing that any longer. So we created a systemic Doppler solution. And I'm going to show you that now, the only way I know how, by putting a big Benny noodle machine on top of a mountain. So you can hear the pitch and tempo changing as we move relative to the Benny noodle machine, and this is all fully systemic, no special treatment for this sound. And I expect the noodle bar to be very busy after that commercial. So, how does it work? Well, the listener is surrounded by variable time delay buffering, not the horrible kind of buffering you get on the internet. This is a really nice kind that helps the game sound good. Each buffer represents a section of the sphere around the audio listener, and the audio is mixed into these buffers at a position that is appropriate to the object's position in the world. Changes in the position are applied to the delay buffer by interpolating the audio data. But that's not all we're doing here. Now, I know there was a bar citizen yesterday, so some of you may not be thinking as fast as you might normally, but you may have realized that by buffering the data in this way, we're not just creating a speed of sound, we are not just creating a Doppler effect, we are indeed, and I just spoiled my own line, creating a speed of sound effect. So, introducing systemic speed of sound to the game, I now have a couple of minutes of video, and we go through rapid fire, looking at some fantastic examples of what this brings to the game, starting with a spaceship pass by that is supported tonally by the systemic speed of sound. Okay, sounds cool. What about weapon fire? So let's bring in a sniper and, unfortunately for the sensitive of heart, a Pico. We're going to hear this first from the perspective of both with no speed of sound effect. Okay, so that's, if you were at the Pico perspective there, that's how you'd hear it in game right now. Let's hear it with speed of sound enabled, and this time we're just going to listen from Pico's perspective. So Pico's down before he even hears the shot. But don't worry, he's not dead. Okay, let's finish him off. Now he's dead. And as the voice of Pip's Power Up, I need to get some proper placement in. So there's one more example for you. Now finally, oh, not finally, we have ship weapons, so listen to the fire rate as the ship approaches the camera here, giving you a bit of a sense of threat. It's not too easy to tell what's going on there, but you get an increase in fire rate. Finally, the really cool stuff, explosions. So we can put a cinematic element, a shockwave element, and a delayed speed of sound effects. And that's way too cool to do just once, so we're going to do it twice more from further distance. So again, cinematic effect first when you see it. shockwave, and the explosion itself. This is all completely driven by parameters in the game, so we can do this for real whenever you drop a Moab. One more. That's pretty cool. So the speed of sound simulation gives you a better sense of distance, it improves the sense of speed, and it supports those amazing cinematic moments. So, in summary, we're trying to make the game more immersive and respond to all this Genesis data and make it feel more real. And that's not all we can do. We can make sounds respond differently to changes in atmospheric pressure and resultant changes in temperature. So, for example, the sound will travel faster in extremely hot, high-pressure environments. We really look forward to getting this in-game for you and getting you enjoying it at home. Now, that's all from Phase 4 of the Genesis cycle, Light and Sound. So I'm going to hand you back to the amazing Ben and Ali to bring us home with the final phase.
Thank you, sir.
So, as Graham says, this is going to be the final phase of Genesis, and it's called Nature's Wrath. And this is where we're going to bring the very planet itself to life. So, first off, let's start talking clouds. So clouds have got an atmosphere, have got to be one of my favorite visual features of our game, and they're truly awesome, but they're also completely static. Nothing has changed with them. So what we want to bring with Genesis is the evolution of clouds over time. But this isn't just some simple scrolling animation. We use the same physical data sets that drove the biomes we talked about earlier and Starchitect, and these are also now driving a physical simulation of the clouds so they can form and dissipate in realistic conditions. So this means things like the oceans, the prevailing winds, mountain ranges, and the temperature will all impact the clouds. But to complement these more dynamic clouds, we've also improved our lighting model. So it now correctly accounts for how light scatters multiple times inside a cloud. And this is important, creates much deeper lighting, and it can contrast against the sun's rays, resulting in much more vivid cloudscapes like we see on the left here, something we're all too familiar with in Manchester.
Now, it would be awesome to bring this into context and show it on an actual location. Let's take a look at a quick scene to round this up. It's a nice day on the surface, but something's different. The clouds are moving, but they're not just moving, they're forming naturally in changing shape. They dissipate as they glide on the atmosphere based on wind data, stratus and cumulus alike. Now we start seeing the new cloud shading model come into play. We are seeing enhanced occlusion beneath the cover, emphasizing the sunbeams, how it interact with the clouds, and seeing the light shafts peer through the layers. Now, as this is closing in, we can start to see the changes in visibility of the area. Light precipitation is starting. Previously, we authored static cloud shapes, but no longer. We didn't manually place a volume here. Its presence has been informed by Genesis data. Oh, and it's not just a cloud volume. It's a weather front. Now we're trying to see the wind picking up. Terrain and rocks are getting wet. Vegetation, grass, and the overall environment are responding to the weather. The system is changing the world around us. We can see puddles being formed dynamically in the dirt, properly responding to light, reflections, and rain droplets. Making it getting really ominous and loud in here. I can feel the danger. I think we should let this play out in the game.
Weather results being fast on this location. Conditions are deteriorating with severe items. We need to leave now. Get back. I'm getting out of this suit now. Powering up and flying out. We'll need to switch to IFR. See you on the other side.
Man, that's what we call the Falco maneuver, to get out of there. Ali, please break this down for us. What did we just see?
Yeah, so that was a combination of lots of tech we just saw that all combined together to make a really great cohesive experience. So we started with the cloud simulation, which wasn't really a cloud simulation, it's a weather simulation. The rain will appear not at random, but it's based on physically plausible conditions, so you have real weather fronts evolving across your planet all the time. We have a host of visual effects, like the rain, and then you have the atmospheric scattering that you get under the columns of rain. We had the puddles and the splashes and all of this type of visual effects. We saw the wind developing over time, and that introduced turbulence to the flight model, making flight very challenging. And then, of course, we saw the lightning, which plays havoc with your instrumentation, but direct strikes will damage your ship, and of course, some storms will be dangerous enough to be fatal, as Ben's unlucky Aurora just found out. And these storms will sometimes be short-lived and localized, but others will be larger and potentially permanent on some planets. And this is going to restrict access via flight. I mean, players will be forced to resort to ground vehicles or even foot. And this is all going to be dynamic, meaning that you might find yourself trapped in some really unexpected situations. So we really can't wait to use all these mechanics to open up many new gameplay opportunities for All in the Verse soon.
A wise yogi once said, "It's your job as a pilot to compensate and stay on course." All right, what have we learned today, guys? We've shown you an approach of encoding the rules of nature into planetary data. We've seen biomes emerge from geology, temperature, humidity, climate, weather, the physical terrain. We create denser, more diverse living planets without artists hand placing or manually creating biomes, instead leveraging asset mapping. We've shown you a new way to make the game that can scale, to create thousands of Korean places for civilizations on planets that can be used for missions or immersion gameplay, without art and design hand-placing locations, leveraging world design rules instead. We've seen how populations of AI and NPCs inhabiting locations dynamically adapt their understanding of the environment without custom markup by developers, allowing the creation of more playable spaces rapidly. We've shown you how light and sound also benefit from Genesis data to influence planetary environments, and we've shown how these systems come together when weather comes into an area, changing your gameplay experience significantly. Our goal with Genesis and all of its systems is to create more worlds, better worlds, faster, by applying our tech wizardry and craftsmanship to build systems that respond to data. That's our Star Engine presentation for today, guys, for this year. Have a great CitizenCon. We'll see you on the next one.
Oh no, you know what? No, I'm muted in the stream, but I wasn't muted for you. Thanks, guys. Yeah, sorry about that. I was trying to make sure I didn't have any background noise going. Go ahead, Meg. I'm sorry. You were saying the biomes. The biomes are the things. Yeah.
Re-ask your question. They didn't hear your question.
Oh, I am so sorry. Thank you, Gomab. The question was if there was something that really stood out to Meg. It doesn't have to be one thing, but if there's anything in particular that she saw what stood out, and that's what she was responding to.
Yeah, the biomes. I don't have a lot of game experience like with other video games besides like Call of Duty. So I've dipped my feet into Ark a bit, and being able to go to different biomes within that game has always been something that's been my favorite thing about video games. So of course we have like the difference in Star Citizen now, but the density and the huge difference versus just like deserted empty space, and seeing like the logs and stuff while you're like wading through the water. Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Okay.
More, but if I was to pick one thing, that for sure.
The biome's exciting. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me go to Kelosal. I'll go to you.
Yeah, so I appreciate everything. I mean, Genesis is a game changer. I have seen a lot of that type of technology in other games. But what fascinated me was the sound. That was fascinating. I mean, they put up new VFX and things like that with the bombs and of course the sound. I mean, being from Florida, I mean, I was privileged enough to see with every shuttle launch, when the shuttles came back, I was privileged enough to hear the sonic boom. And you know, and being in Daytona and Titusville, 60, 90 miles away, you can hear that even 60 or 90 miles away, the sonic boom, even that far. So to see that type of and hear that in Genesis or in Star Genesis, it to me is a big deal, and it was nice to have. I would like to see a little bit more VFX when it comes to the waves, because if you're getting something of that type of atomic situation, you should be able to see and feel a lot of the debris hitting you, even if it's a couple of miles away. So I would like to see more VFX on that piece, but I appreciated that part. I thought that was transcending.
Okay. Gomab.
I thought that everything that they showed was fantastic and beautiful, and I, keeping in line with things I've said many times before on this show and in Discord. Hopefully, this allows them to be a bit faster, not a bit, a lot faster in putting out these things. You know, I think CIG needs to get to a point where they put in a well-crafted prompt of sorts as to what a system needs to be and what it needs to have. It runs through this system, whether it's Genesis, right? When I say what a star system needs to have, it runs through Genesis. It creates it, it populates it, and then a few folks need to go through and just QA quality, you know, make sure that it has everything, do a little bit of polish, and it needs to be able to be released. That is the only way they will reach the scale, right? Maybe they focus on building different, you know, different bespoke landing zones, like the cities, the big cities. But as far as spending the time on crafting and creating the planets and the POIs and all that stuff, yeah, hopefully this will automate a lot of those things. Now, in chat, we were talking a lot about, yeah, we're doing all this stuff for alien planets, but it looks a lot like Florida. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When we're looking at those swamps and stuff. Now, hopefully, somebody pointed out, maybe they're starting with the familiar and they'll add in the alien as they progress.
Yeah.
Let's hope for that. You know, I mean, you know, we got Pandora out there. That could be a great example as to what a jungle could look like on a different planet, right? It doesn't have to all look like another Earth.
Right.
So.
Okay, that's good stuff. Captain Jones.
Yeah, I think Genesis was great. So really excited to see that they're able to take a bunch of separate tools that they've been working on and integrate them to work together, and most likely, hopefully, fingers crossed, be able to build out these planets and systems at a much faster rate.
Yeah.
So it all looks great. You know, from the sound to just seeing how, you know, the grass interacted when people were walking. That scene where he's walking through the swamp and the log to the walking, it all looked amazing. And to others' point, both what GoMab said and in chat, just really eagerly anticipating and waiting to see what they do more creatively when it comes to the alien aspect of it. Because, you know, once we start getting beyond Terra and other Earth type atmospheres, you know, really see what those alien worlds going to look like. Seeing the redwoods are amazing. You know, I've seen them in real life. I really don't want to see them in Star Citizen. I want to see things I haven't seen yet as an explorer. So waiting for that.
Yeah. So, SeriousFun.
Yeah, no, I think that to Gomab's point, everything was instructive and potentially transformative, and all of it layers upon itself. And we want to make sure that it does so in a way that allows them to move quicker through the generation of planets. But I think we're going to see that. I am 120% convinced that the swamps and the jungles and the stuff that is Earth-like is because our fifth planet is an Earth-like planet in Terra. If you notice we'll eventually get to these panels across all citizens, but if you notice, Terra was very green in the concept art, right? And we're seeing a lot of green here. Also, don't forget that systems like Toe Hill, which has a jump point out of Nyx, will also benefit from the stretching of these algorithms, these Genesis algorithms, to deliver things on Toe Hill 3, like our large island-sized foliage growing out of the water, right? Seeing things that we haven't seen before. So I think they're going to begin with stuff that we know and flex in that direction. The most important panel that's...
Sorry, Cat. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead, buddy. Go ahead, finish. I'll come after you.
I was just gonna say the most important panel that's been underplayed for me was the Phase 3 panel or Life panel. I think that there's a little bit of lost in translation there. People saw the day-night cycle and was like, oh, we've seen this before. But the vision perception for NPCs, the low perception NPC processing, the flashlights, the fact that the cover will be voxelated, not for us, but for the purposes of shape detection for NPCs. That cover surfaces will be generated and evaluated or painted walkable areas, stuff that can be stepped over. Destroying cover with Maelstrom will also correctly update cover for NPCs. There was a lot of how NPCs will move and adjust and respond. They tossed in a Pets Tier 0 there, just kind of casual. There was a lot of stuff in that Phase 3 Life one that I think we ought to go back and really process. I think we might end up experiencing that one very directly, and I don't want to underestimate it. So that one stood out to me.
Yeah, it's good. It's all good stuff. I want to take something that both Goma. Oh, Kelosal, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to educate people. I know people love the state of Florida, and Florida has, a tropical, subtropical climate. But I want to remind people that there are other states that have swamps too, like good old state of Georgia, because Georgia and Florida shares the Okefenokee swamp, Gomab, and the other state that has the largest swamp is the state of good old Louisiana. So y'all can go ahead and add those states to the forte. God bless Florida.
Just because you live in Swampa, Florida.
Yeah, he just recently got his own swamp down there, didn't he? Yeah. I do want to touch on something that both Captain Jones and Gomab hit on. Sirius too. Actually, everybody said something that's important here. I think that this panel got underestimated, and I think maybe it was underestimated a little bit because last year we got, the whole Star Engine thing, right? We saw the engine side of what this thing is capable of doing. But one of the things that backers have been saying over the last year, as we've been approaching both last year's CitizenCon and this one, as we talk about 1.0, this subject keeps coming up, but where are the 100 systems? What happened to that? And I think people, and I saw some people post this, and it was either, I don't know if it was Reddit or I don't know where I saw it, but it was after CitizenCon. Somebody said, here we go again, another show on tools. No, this is not another presentation on tools. This is the culmination of how all the individual tools that CIG has been working on over the years is coming together into a system. There was something they said at the very end of this that I think some people may have missed. It says so that we create worlds that are based on data. Gomab, you hit it on the head a second ago. It's being able to input data into the Genesis system, and Genesis does all the work exponentially. So now, where before they had to manually go in and put everything in. In fact, on one of the slides, it said manual work is not an option anymore because the amount of time it would take to create these systems. Some people have said, two systems every 6 months, one system, 4 systems a year. No, CIG wants to expand that exponentially so that most of you get to play the game while you're still alive. If you were talking about 4 systems a year, well, we talking about 40 years, 30 years, whatever. No, CIG wants this thing to be able to bounce out, and this is bringing all that together under the Genesis system. So now all they have to do is put in data. For those of you who are concerned, and Gomab, I understand, I think all of us have been looking for where is the actual alien side? Where is the actual out there side of the game? And I think that for those of you who don't know anything about the Secret Service, when the Secret Service in the United States looks for forgery, they don't teach them to look for forgery by looking at bad bills. They make them look at good bills so that they can understand how, because if you can identify a good one, it's easier to identify a bad one. These things are being done for familiarity's sake so they can see how closely they can replicate the real world. All they have to do is change the data
and the world becomes alien. The world becomes foreign. It becomes different. And I think that's what this is all about. So this is to make it comfortable for us. The Redwood scene was nothing more than an ode to Star Wars, just like we saw the X-Wing that was laying out in the sea. That was just to give us some ideas of where they're trying to go. But I guarantee you that this system is very much being underestimated, and people think it's just about tools. No, it's about taking all the tools that they've been working on, and now they have a system that when they put the data in, it pulls back the labor and all the hard work that it has taken CIG thus far to produce even a system like Stanton. So I think there's a lot more to it. And I think you just mentioned SeriousFun, that it's important to go back and look at some of that. They mentioned earlier about soil, temperature, humidity. One of the terms they used in here is they said this is a weather simulation. They actually use that term. In other words, the weather in this game is not some script that runs, but it actually works like a simulation based upon the temperature, whether or not the sun is out, whether or not the winds are blowing a certain direction. They're taking this thing to a whole nother level for Planetech V5. One other thing I want to mention here, they say it's for emergent environments, they want less labor, no repetition, which is something folks y'all been complaining about. How come all the stations look the same? How come they're saying no repetition? They want day-night cycles. To your point, SeriousFun, they wanted to be able to be so that when those guards, because how many of y'all been out there at nighttime? Captain Jones, you and I have been out there before. Them snipers be sniping us through the fog in the dark, right? That's going to change. They will be impacted by weather environments just like we are. Right now, that is not the case. And they want improved workflow. Perception of the NPCs. Even they talked about the Copian. The reason why he had the Copian there is because the Copian could see better than the NPC could, right? So they're talking about a whole nother level of design for this game. And then they brought in Maelstrom and talked about what Maelstrom could do for the game. So anyway, that's the thing I want to point out to you guys, that this particular panel, which is why I think it is so important, this is the culmination of years and years of work, R&D and research and development that now will allow them to put out systems much, much faster. And I wouldn't be surprised if they put out systems at one point almost monthly, if not bi-monthly. I wouldn't be surprised. Mm-hmm.
So I'm also looking forward to Foliage. I know they had some stuff and stuff like that in there. Mm-hmm. We got some subscribers flares like the Space Flower, Emperor, Blossom. I know that's usually in Terra. Mm-hmm. But I'm looking for those types of things that we've already gotten early. The early backers have gotten with those types of things that we can go ahead and a couple years ago they gave us. You could buy one of those portable thingamajig and you put flowers and stuff on and what have you. Right. So I'm quite sure that's coming out with farming, but I'm encouraged with Genesis. To see how they're going to do that when they finally put in those types of specialized plants.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else got any thoughts about this one in particular?
Also weather. They briefly showed just like the thunderstorms. We already have some of the lightning stuff, the solar stuff in Pyro. I was talking to Elliot about it, and he didn't really say anything, so and I'm not gonna quote anything because I totally forgot. But I was excited. I was telling him I was excited because I thought about how hopefully we're gonna be.
Hang on a second. Meg, do me a favor. Hold your head up because on the screen, all we're seeing is your hair.
Okay. It's going to be exciting to potentially have to put some more preparation into what we're doing when we're going to do some of these missions. Like, say we go down to a planet and there's a thunderstorm that's happening right over like a bunker that we're trying to go to. That's all I know is bunkers. But distribution centers, anything, like whatever we get in the future, maybe we can't land there or we shouldn't land there because we don't know if that's going to affect our ship or ruin or have us stranded. So like having to park further out and then actually like drive in. That's stuff like that's going to be exciting. Yeah.
Let me ask you guys a question on the panel real quick, and then we're going to do our final thing here. We got some questions too. This is pushing for simulation. Some people talk about Star Citizen. They want a simulation. They want something real. Other people say they don't. It's too much. The details are too much. What are your feelings when you look at this? If we look at everything they showed us about this, the level that they're going, because here's something I saw somebody post about and complain. Somebody complained that the lightning struck the Aurora and knocked it down. And their comment was, 900 years later, we don't know how to protect a ship from being struck by lightning. Now,
that's silly. That lightning blowing up an Aurora is absolutely ridiculous.
Okay, so does it make for exciting gameplay, or is it ridiculous? Because if we put everything 900 years in the future, most of the experiences that we're talking about that we enjoy as gamers would not be there. That becomes my question. If that ship got hit by lightning and nothing happened, and I'm just asking.
Not saying nothing should happen.
Okay.
Maybe it should take lightning strikes should do a percentage of distortion damage and impact the components.
Fair. There should be some, but you get what my point is. Someone was saying that Aurora should be able to fly and nothing happened. And I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just talking about from a game perspective, is it just as exciting? If we take technology to the leaps and bounds that, some people say we should go.
I'll be the one to say I thought it was.
Okay.
We don't know how that all lightning acts the same. I would hope.
Okay.
It's space lightning. It hits harder.
Whatever.
Yeah, there you go. Super lightning.
Whatever you want to think.
It's super lightning.
Minimize a video game for you.
Yeah, ionizing. I understand Gomab's point. There should be some impact of it. Again, I think it was for drama to say, but I know that there are people who say that either it's too arcadey or too sim. And is this time and effort and research worth it to most gamers? Do you think that gamers don't care? Do gamers care about the seasonal change?
Who cares about all this stuff?
Yeah, well, I'm asking, do they care about the seasonal flowers changing and falling off, the leaves falling down?
Yeah, I mean, there's some people who do. Some people who are passionate. Some people who really want that type of game. I mean, I'll go ahead and speak for myself. I mean, I wanted this game. I wanted a game that I can be able to press, if not all the buttons on the ship. I want the game that I can walk around on the ship. I want the game that I can literally get on a ship, cut it on, get out of a bay, fly up in the air, and then fly through space seamlessly. Yeah. So for me, that's something that I wanted. That's real. There are some people who want flowers they can touch. There's games right now like Pox Day that has flowers in game, and they are based off of the flowers that we have here on Earth.
Yeah.
Right. So, and you can pick those, and the resources and stuff that you can extract are things that we've already done here. So why not have that type of? If I would have wanted simulation or type of arcade type gameplay, I'm leaving Star Citizen. Okay. Because I didn't go for Star Citizen for an arcade type game. I didn't. I came to it for some bit of realism. So I would appreciate if they tried to stay with it, no matter how difficult they think other people may want the game out now. I don't want a game that's arcadey.
Let me challenge you to that. I don't think the issue is difficulty. I think the issue is time. Are backers wanting to put in? Do they want the time that it takes to make this world? Because they could have done this sooner.
If they do, they stay with it. If they don't, they'll go ahead and dip and go someplace else. And fine, GTA is coming out next year.
I think Star Citizen has been walking a fine line, right? Because every gamer, every backer wants the realism that they want, right? Some people say that they want realism, and then you say, "Oh, do you want to have to calculate equations related to orbital mechanics to be able to take your ship off every time you want to hit the orbit of a planet? You want to have to achieve low Earth orbit and then move out from there and all?" People don't want to do that.
No, they don't want to do that.
Space program.
Yeah, right.
So, we want a certain level of realism that we feel comfortable with, right? And what is interesting about Star Citizen is that it looks at the continuum of space games, and it also looks at space popular culture and space lore, and says, we are going to set out our stall here, and it picks an area in and around that with pieces of realism, pieces of detail, pieces of what would be for realism purists relative compromise. It simulates some other stuff, and it's continuously balancing that. Right? It's continuously finding where it is going to be and wrestling with that, and that's why the open development I think is important. Right? It's important for us to give our feedback for things that we see, right? Like the feedback that you saw here today in the chat, to definitely be shared with CIG, right? So that they can have that, right? And they can continue to walk that line that leans in the direction of some details, some realism, rule of cool, and whatever secret sauce that they've had to this point that's kept millions of us as backers engaged.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think ultimately it's about balance. So, things that are real aren't always necessarily fun. So, being someone that's actually in a plane that was struck by lightning, it was extremely uneventful. Sometimes it can get hit and you don't even realize it happened. So,
right.
I think that they're looking to make it fun. You've got to some things that are real are just aren't fun. I mean, we run into a hangar and jump into a ship with no kind of pre-flight checks, no kind of maintenance, not weathering what's going on in the rotation or in the atmosphere, any of that. We just hop out and go. If we added the realism that it's actually realism in all instances, people would be pretty bored. So we gotta look, how real is it versus how fun is it, and then just hope that SIG is making a happy balance, because ultimately it's a sci-fi game. Most of us here are probably sci-fi fans. We've watched people in films shoot lightning bolts out of their hands and not really freak out about it. So as long as it's fun, I think ultimately they'll be on the right path.
It's an interesting perspective. I wrestle with all the different personalities that come to this game. There are sci-fi people, there are science people, there are arcade people, there are combat PvP. I mean, all these different folks being introduced to this world, and everybody wants their thing. And I think SeriousFun, you said a second ago, the CIG is walking this tightrope with how do they provide as much of that as possible. We don't want to do what it really takes to go into space. We really wouldn't want to do that. After several times, we think we got bored freaking flying from Orison up to freaking what is the station up there? We couldn't even take that, let alone if we really had to fly ships the way we really want to. But there are some people who do want that level of immersion in the game. You
have a board when you go to Hurston.
Yeah. Well,
or assuming that we'd even be flying anyways, most of the things we do in game right now is because we have fun doing it.
Right.
I mean, AI and tech.
It'd be all automated.
In the future, we'll probably automate.
It'd be all automated. We wouldn't be doing squat. Right. We wouldn't be doing anything. You wouldn't be flipping those switches, Kelosal. You'd be sitting there drinking some tea, and that'd be about it. So.
Pops did beat me to one thing. I had it in my mind, and I was trying to wait for the conversation to get to a different point. But we're still waiting for that lava tech.
Lord.
Volcanoes and those waterfalls.
You and your Mustafar.
Come in. I think we're pretty much done. I mean, in most cases, but
we'll see. All right, we got some questions, gang. This one's from Lady Space Patrol. Chris said base building is 12 to 18 months out. The footage we saw of base building was labeled as gray box. The footage of Nyx was also labeled gray box. Do you think we will see Nyx within the next 12 to 18 months as well?
Yes, done.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Captain Jones, Gomab.
I think we'll see Nyx before 12 months have passed.
Gomab's 50-50.
Yeah, I'm pretty much 50-50 too. Depends on where they're at. 12 months from now, they might actually want to tie that to a patch. So if we're not at a point where there's a new version patch coming out, they might stretch it out a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be that far out.
Okay. Meg?
Adding some water. Adding some water into my spoonful of salt here. I just looking at the previous stuff, gray box and white box. All that means is there's a version of it that could come out. Is that version good enough for Chris to say yes? This is my vision of Nyx. That's the there's been a lot of things that have been in gray box for quite a while now, and that so it doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that is an impending release. 12 to 18 months. if they say that, then that probably that's going to be the lower end of the thing, of the target. If it's not 18 to 24.
Okay. Meg, any thoughts?
I think if it was something other than Knicks, I'd probably be a little bit more pessimistic. But knowing that some of the assets we've actually seen in Stanton in the past with Levski, and also there was an episode a couple of years ago where the devs actually said Knicks was done. So we can only assume that they've only been polishing it since then. I think if we talk specifically about Knicks, I think that can come out.
Okay.
Really just depend on where they are patch wise. Other systems are not as optimistic.
Okay. Meg, any thoughts? Nick, you think we'll see it within the next 12 to 18 months?
Not sure. Maybe not.
Okay. Fair enough. Another one from Lady Space Patrol, Benoit, and the dynamic weather simulation was playing out in the game, said it was playing out in the game. Dynamic weather is stage 5 of Genesis. Do you anticipate Genesis as being ready for the game already based on that? If not, do you think it is close or far away? Do you guys think Genesis is almost ready, or you think there's still more work to be done?
No.
I think that Genesis is how they bring 1.0 home. So Genesis is as far away as 1.0 is.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll comment on when the first time they say this system was created by Genesis.
Okay.
Right. Until then, we just saw a bunch of assets and things about what they're planning on doing. Right. Not necessarily what it can do, because we didn't see them do it. We didn't see them put in something and then it spit out a finished planet with those biomes in there created. We saw pretty biomes, and we heard them say Genesis is going to be able to do that. That doesn't mean they've actually made it happen yet.
Okay.
And so I don't see it being done anytime soon.
Okay. Alrighty then. We got one from Fastcart. Some were hoping to see Squadron 42 stars this year. Are you more disappointed you didn't see them this year, or more hyped to see them at a future CitizenCon?
I went to see Mark Hamill.
Yeah, I wanted to see them this year. It's one of the reasons I flew over the pond.
Yeah.
So, seeing that sign of 2026 just kind of drags it out for me. Is it next year's CitizenCon? Is it the CitizenCon after that? I feel like between things like the gala and a lot of things they were hyping up, I think they did set the expectation it was going to be this year.
Okay.
If I can imagine, I'm sure they had a couple stars that were willing to come, and they were like, wait, hold up, it's not coming out soon. This is two more years. Hell no, I'm not about to show up there and get cussed out. Can you imagine Henry Cavill showing up and people be like, why 2 more years, Henry? I see them showing up when the actual marketing push for Squadron 42 gets in full swing, and then they will burn that capital. It makes no sense for them to bring those people to this CitizenCon when we're at yet another 2 more years.
Well, I mean, I'm not discouraged about the 2 years, because there's clearly some games coming out next year that could compete financially with CIG. And throw CIG's market off of a loop. GTA to be one example. And of course, we got the new console that's coming out for PlayStation, or that's already out, the PlayStation Pro, that would benefit GTA and other games companies that are trying to put out a strong enough game for that platform.
Yeah.
So to me, a 2026 to me was the reasonable choice. 1, because they probably aren't done, gives them more time to get done, and 2, competing against GTA is a dead weight. You might not want to do that in 2025.
That's the second time you've mentioned. Go ahead.
Right, go ahead, Griff. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the second time you've mentioned GTA 6. Does anybody on the panel know what the development time is on it?
It's been since 2014.
Mm-hmm.
It was announced 2014, but they say the number, if you look on Gamers, it's a couple Gamers Radar and Game one other one. They say it's actually 14 years, 12 years. I'm sorry, 12 years. So I know why they did. Part of it was because they were doing stuff with Red Dead Redemption and they were doing the online stuff, but their fans were complaining about the fact that it's taken so long for them to do GTA 6. And their CEO had to respond to that by saying, we had some other stuff that we were doing too, but yeah, it is coming out. Now, it is scheduled to come out next year, scheduled tentatively, right? Tentatively, right?
And people keep saying it's delayed. We have not heard from GTA that it's delayed.
No, but my point,
they came out and said the opposite.
Yeah, but my point isn't about the delay. My point is that they took 12 years on a game that's been in existence already with their own engines and stuff.
Yeah,
and you see what I'm saying?
City.
Yeah,
one city,
right? Yeah, right. One city, right? Good point.
Yeah.
And I'm mentioning that because I think people lose perspective a little bit. And don't get me wrong. Listen, y'all, I know it's a long wait. I'm not taking nothing about a long wait, but I'm just saying is this GTA is taking 12 years and $2 billion. $2 billion. Now,
crown that one, right?
When I asked that question about details, or we got to get ready to wrap the show up and we got to do it. We're going to do it a giveaway, y'all. So y'all hang in here. The reason why I mentioned that is because if we want the detail, if we want the depth, if we want the immersion, if we want the reality, the real, and all of the other stuff that comes along with it, we did a show a while back that said there are two things that they say that you need in order to do video games well, or any type of software development, and that's money and time. Those two things. The more you can invest in those two areas, the more you could probably accomplish what it is you want to do, hopefully. But without those two things, if either one of those things cuts off, in other words, you don't get the funding, you're going to have to kill it, right? And if you don't have the time, that means you got to pull back too. So that's why I asked, do we really want these things? They look great and they sound great and we get excited about them. But if it means money and time, if we're going to complain about giving CIG money, or if we're going to complain about how long it's taking, and at the same time say we want the realism. Now, if the community says we don't care about the realism, we don't care about the depth, then you better check yourself about the time and money, because you can't have it both ways. And I know people want to feel that, well, you should be able to. Listen, I'm taking a whole nother game, another franchise, taking Rockstar, 12 years on GTA 6. It's not an easy pill to swallow. It's a freaking horse pill to swallow. But all I'm doing is asking yourself, what do you want from this game? Do you want this game to be like GTA, where GTA is very popular now, and years later, people are still playing and excited about it? Do you want Star Citizen to be that same thing?
Game in the world, yeah.
Yeah. Or do you want it to be something that you play for 6 months and after that you move on to something else? It's a tough call on that. We got one more question here from Ryus. I never pronounce your name. One day you have to tell me how to pronounce your name. Ryuskasian. I know I'm slaughtering it, so please forgive me. Question for the panel. From the presentation, right? Thank you, Gomab. Well, much more literate than I am. From the presentation shown by the Moist Master and Ali Brown, what ratio of similar to unique environments would you be okay with in order to get planets done faster? Reason for my asking is because even though these assets aren't hand-drawn anymore, they are data-driven, which means that the devs will still need to create more unique library assets, but to what extent? Time and uniqueness and satisfaction. In other words, how far do you want them to go, I guess, with, when they're creating these worlds, if it means making it happen faster? I'm going to answer this real quick. And if anybody else wants to jump in after me, feel free. I think if it's data driven, it doesn't have to be based upon what's familiar. It could be the most alien thing out there. I mean, we look at what AI is capable of doing right now. AI can create some things that look so real to life and real world that you can't even tell. Then there's some things that you can put in AI with data and it looks so otherworldly. And the time frame in doing both of them is inconsequential, right? It's about the data that's given to it. So I think that that's not going to be something that we have to worry about if they're creating worlds that look more whatever, that means there has to be more time invested. But I still think there will be that, I think Gomab said it earlier, an overview of making sure that there's uniqueness, that things stand out the way they want them to look, Anybody else want to jump in on that?
Yeah, if they didn't think that these tools layered one upon the other, working in concert, working in synergy, were going to both then the diversity of planetary body development and speed exponentially speed up their process, and I don't think they should have announced the tools. Right? They need the Genesis needs to be that tool set, but they need to think it's that tool set, right? Otherwise, I think they should have waited and came up with another tool set, because that's the tool set they need. They need a tool set that's going to give them infinite diversity and infinite combinations, right? And to do it in a way that that is a button and a set of processes kick in on the basis of a prompt, an algorithm, a set of ideas. So that's my take.
Other than that, you're going to end up like Elite Dangerous, or you're going to end up like No Man's Sky. I mean, we've seen Elite Dangerous and its ability to go ahead and generate billions of systems and billions of planets, but yet there's hundreds of evidence out there that a lot of planets look identical, right? And things like that and so forth. So, of course, No Man's Sky, you got the same thing with that, generated type of system, but then a lot of planets still look kind of stale and have some bit of a scheme that's still the same but different. I mean, I'd rather them continue to go on with this model, continue to build whatever assets they need to go ahead and build. So if they're going to use some type of AI generated system, that would help expedite their process and creating more systems, that they have enough in that tool system to give us uniquely different planets or booms.
If Genesis, if the core of Genesis, if the first detail that it looks at is the characteristics of the star, right? And that becomes the basis as to what everything is built off of. And that, I believe, will create the variety in all of the different things. So as long as their systems are able to build, take input from, this is the star, these are the planets, this is how far they are away from the star, here are the groups of people that have populated or have been here or have have settled here. Here are their principles and their stuff. Then you start to have, okay, what kind of POIs are on the planet? What kind of stations are going to be, above the planets or in the belts or whatever? And those things can be procedurally generated, and you'll have your variety as long as it's a rules-based systems, right? As long as it's built upon if everything's the same from Stanton and System X, but the star is one is a regular yellow sun-like star and another one is a red dwarf, everything is different.
Yep. The data will do it. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Everything will be different. So as long as the system is built like that. But also, I want to expose Ryukishin is actually Kalrati in hiding. He's famous now.
I know.
He's famous now, so he has to lay low.
I didn't want to say his name because I know he has his alter egos out there. That's why I told him I got to get him to tell me how to say it, because I just could never get it together. All right. Well, listen, we've had some great conversation. We are over today. I thought we were going to be maybe 15, 20 minutes over. We're almost 40 minutes over. What we want to do real quick is do a giveaway. Since you guys are here and you guys have been here and put in with us tonight, we want to say thank you to all of you who got a chance to tune in and watch last week when watched that. Also, some of you guys got a chance to watch SeriousFun and I as we did our pre-show conversation from Tim Hortons while we were in Manchester. So we want to do a CitizenCon giveaway, even though it's a week later. And that giveaway is going to be an atlas. We're going to give away an atlas. No, I'm just kidding. We're actually going to give away, as you can see, a Starlancer Max. So if you guys are interested in a Starlancer Max, SeriousFun, why don't you tell them a little bit what we're offering this week, and we'll start. We're going to give you guys 2 minutes to jump in on this. Don't forget exclamation point ticket, I think it is. Whoa!
Thanks, Lefty. Appreciate it,
Lefty, thank you so much for that.
thank you. 10 subs. You guys, exclamation point. Is it exclamation point ticket or ticket exclamation point? I can't remember which one it is.
Exclamation point give the Kelosal.
No, it isn't. Don't y'all give him nothing.
Ticket.
Exclamation point ticket. Okay.
Exclamation point ticket.
Thank you.
Or it's exclamation point ticket 1. Looks like you have.
Well, they'll get a 1. The 1 tells them if their ticket went in. So it's just exclamation point ticket, I think.
Placing your proceeds to Kelosal at Hurston, always known as
open to soul members. All right, no.
Yeah, for those of you, this is the one of 3 of the new MISC ships. I know Kelosal's a big MISC fan here. For those of you who are interested in the Max, obviously we're going with this one maybe because also the cargo dynamic that's there for a lot of you who are into the cargo stuff right now. But for those of you who are looking for the base building later, this is one of the ships that's supposed to lend itself toward that as well. So hopefully you guys will, somebody's going to win today. Somebody's going to win.
Are we eligible today?
No, you are. Yeah, okay. All right. Today I'll say yes. I'll say yes if you guys want to get in. You know what? This guy makes more money than any of us on the panel.
That's because GomabATL
we're going to appease him today. All right.
GomabATL should be banned. His first time.
So any Soul Team members, you guys can put in. GomabATL is interceded on your behalf this week. So if you're a Soul Team member, you guys can put in for it as well. Okay.
What ship is this?
Yeah, Zach. This is for the Starlancer Max. Starlancer Max.
Does it matter what ship it is?
Zach Attack. Yeah, I know. Kelosal got the nerve to ask it. It is the one time he can get in, and he's gonna be picky about it, right?
I don't know if I want this one.
Zach Attack, thank you for the follow. Codename Aurora, thank you for the follow. Vaverick, thank you for the 1,000 bits. Rennie, thank you for the follow as well. Lefty again, thanks for the 10 subs. Vertigus Gris SC, thank you for the follow as well. We had some other people that checked in earlier too. Thracazogs, as always, thank you. Envoy, good to see you. Charles, DCI, thank you. Iobane, thank you. Yeah, that's it. That's everybody who punched in today. Thank you guys so much. We are getting ready to do the countdown. We're going to give you 5 seconds for everybody who wants to get in. Once again, exclamation point ticket.
Get in.
Yeah, fast car.
The Starlancer Max. Starlancer Max. Alrighty then. Okay, I think we've got everybody in. Knowledge Lambo, thank you for the follow as well. Okay, alrighty. All right, let's listen to Captain Jones. He's the newest member of the team. We'll let him give us the five countdown, and then we'll punch it. I'm going to close the giveaway in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The giveaway is closed. And Captain Jones, give us the countdown.
All right, we got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, Shitucky. Oh, Shitucky. I haven't seen Shitucky in a while. Shitucky's out there. Are you there, Shitucky? Are you still there? Are you still there? You got to let us know in chat if you are there. Did Shitucky leave? Shitucky might have just punched in and left and said, nah, I'm out of here. Shitucky just fell on the floor. Shitucky's like, what? Look, there it is. There it is. All right, Shitucky, you are the winner of a Starlancer Max. Yes. Starlancer Max. Congrats. You beat out the Soul Team members. They smiling, but they ain't smiling in their hearts right now. That's the only chance they got a chance to go for something. So, but thanks. Congratulations for that. Shitucky, send us your information to soulcitizens@gmail.com. Please do it via Gmail. soulcitizens@gmail.com. Don't forget to put the S on the end of it. Make sure you give us your email that you use for your RSI account, and we will get that out to you tonight. You can send that to us and we'll get it out to you tonight. Yeah, so I think that's about it. We had a long night and a long show tonight, but we're going to close it out real quick. Let's see. Gomab, would you talk about Thursday? Cap, would you talk about SeriousFun? Would you talk about Saturday?
All right, on Thursdays, do you like bad dad jokes? And I'm not talking about regular bad dad jokes. I'm talking about the worst dad jokes you've ever heard in your life. They're so bad, they're actually pretty good sometimes. Sometimes. Fast Card don't get the big head. But on Thursday, come join us. Soul Talk with our host Fast Card, where we can talk about the the latest happenings and news, and if there's an Inside Star Citizen that has aired that day, we'll talk about it. We'll watch some machinima. Come let your voice be heard. Come join us on Discord. Come be a part of the stream and community on Thursdays. And remember, if you got enough points, you can ban Fastcard from making jokes. Everybody doesn't know that. So just remember, you can ban the jokes. So that is a feature that we did by popular demand. So come check us out on Thursday.
Yep. And on Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time is Soul Voices. And Soul Voices is where Griffin Gaming RPG invites you to come and dialogue with him about things on in discourse across the internet, whether it's Reddit, whether it's Spectrum, whether it's other places where conversation is being had, drama is manifesting, ideas are being spread. Griff explores all of those with you, invites you in to dialogue about those. So come and check out Soul Voices on Saturdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. That is part of PodSat, Podcast Saturday, where we kick it off. And then we kick it over, Soul Voices kicks it over to Paul Shelley and the Astro Pub and the Captain's Table. And then the evening finishes with the OGs relay in the evening. So put your earbuds in while you get your work done. Connect with us starting at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, and then you can run all through the rest of the day across PodSat, Podcast Saturday. Soul Voices, 2 p.m. Eastern, Saturday.
Awesome. Thank you. Next week, we are going to be continuing in this series of sessions from CitizenCon, and hope you guys will be able to join us for that next week. Next week, we're going to be doing a social universe and Dress to Kill. That was sessions 2 and 3 from Saturday. So hopefully you guys will be able to hang out with us for that next Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time here at Soul Citizens. Want to say thank you to the panelists who are here. Thank you for those of you who especially traveled across the pond, helped to represent Soul Citizens as always. Meg, thank you. Captain Jones, thank you. SeriousFun, thank you. Subvigio, thank you. It was great to have them around me. At first, I thought I was going to be over there by myself, and lo and behold, I was surrounded by a lot of love and the people that I love as well. So thank you guys for putting in the time. Gomob, Kelosal, thank you guys for holding it down here in the States for us next year. Looking for both of y'all. Quebec, hopefully in Montreal, I should say, or Austin, wherever we might be next year. Hopefully you guys will be able to join us next year when we meet up for
I know there's one person who dressed to kill.
Oh, Lord.
That's Blackjack.
Oh, Lord. Blackjack.
Blackjack is fantastic.
Yeah, Blackjack is amazing, isn't he? I was going to raid Buster the Destroyer, and then she just went on a break, I think. So I've got to change up now, because I don't want to send you guys over there to just stare at a screen, and I'm sorry we can't. Well, I'll still send you guys over. Guys, hang out with Buster if you can. Okay, she's only got 22 people watching her right now, so I think she just got started. But she'll be back on in just a few minutes. Other than that, I think that's about it. Once again, to everybody who's here, thank you guys. Thank you for all the follows, the subs. Congratulations again to Shitucky for winning. Don't forget to send that information to us. And we're going to sign off with you guys. You guys have a great night and a great week. And as always, peace, love, and soul. We'll see you later. Ciao.